call the June 30th, 2020 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. This morning we have Pastor Tim Irving from the Wytheville Baptist Church to offer invocation. If you would please rise and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Irving.
Let us pray. Gracious Lord, we come before you this morning asking for your healing of our country. We pray that you would bring healing for the unrest, for the COVID-19, and we pray that you would bring your wisdom to this Board of Supervisors, that you would give them your insight and your understanding to know how to best lead and guide us in this county. And Lord, we pray that you would continue to guide us as people to turn towards you and to look for your comfort and your peace and your guidance in all that we do. So we look to you this morning. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started in the agenda, we've got I don't want to say guest, but we have a very special person in attendance this morning who is retiring after many years of service here at Wythe County. Mr. David Southers, if you'll come forward. Before I turn it over to Mr. Bear, who's worked with Mr. Southers longer than anybody, David, I know this is not the way you want it to retire, but
Not really.
I want to say you've definitely been a cornerstone of Wythe County. In the IT department, computer world, it's one thing to go out and buy a program for the treasurer's department, commissioner's department, dispatch, whatever office. David's been around so long, he didn't buy those programs, he designed those programs. And that's probably becoming a lost art. And there's no doubt in my mind that you could have went anywhere over the past 15 years and made a whole lot more money with your expertise. But like I said, you've been a cornerstone, you've been here, you've seen basically the modernization of many of these offices. And on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I want to say thank you.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Barry?
Mr. Vaught worded that very well. Come on up here, David. We'll let you talk now. I came to work here almost 20 years ago, and this man amazed me at that point in time. At that time, he lived within walking distance here. He used to always talk about he'd be here no matter what. He'd put it in 10-toe drive if he had to get here. But Mr. Vaught is right. Commissioner Revenue's package. What was the software on that, David? You know, when I came here, I was used to, you bought it off the shelf, whatever it was. David had written that package. Our water billing, Mr. Billing, was that the name of it? Mr. Bill was a water billing that David had his hand in. And David had wonderful programs, was proud of his programs, but yet at the same time, David understood as technology moved forward, it was time for us to make changes, and David diligently worked for us to make those changes and bring things on. Mr. Vaught said, this is a retirement way too soon. You've dedicated your life here, and we greatly appreciate it. The county, the constitutional officers, everyone have benefit from your work over the years. And so with that, this will be David's last day. He will be retiring as of today. So we're presenting this plaque to you in appreciation of 23 years of service from 1997 to 2020. Wythe County Administration Office. And I know we're not supposed to shake hands in this time, but I want to shake your hand anyway and wish you the best. And we have a snafu with a watch he gets to watch also. And then all these times, that's right.
It's got to be programmed.
So we will be getting to watch to him as soon as possible. Also, we'd like to have sort of like we typically do here, retirement get together and have some food and all that, but we're waiting for the right appropriate time in this day and age to do that. So we have to do that within the future. But David, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And David, if you've still got your Palm Pilot, you can keep it.
I think I bought that one.
Also, in the spirit of retirement, I'd like to say congratulations to Supervisor Cook, who today is his last day after 23 years with Wythe County Public Schools, on top of 23 years in the United States Army. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Moving on to the agenda is citizens' time. Do we have anybody signed up for citizens' time? Have anybody that wishes to speak that got here late? Hearing none, I'll close citizens' time. Move on to payment of invoices. Entertain a motion to pay the invoices as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second. Have a motion, and a second. Is there any question, discussion, or invoice that any board member would like to pull out? Who made the motion?
Oh, Coy did.
Have amendment to the motion to include the handout provided by Ms. Collins. Should be this one.
You just want to add, you want a new motion for that?
He can amend his
Okay.
motion to include those.
Well, me and my motion.
Have amended motion, have a second.
Second.
Any question, discussion, or invoice anybody like to discuss, pull out? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting from June the 9th, 2020. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved. Moving down the agenda, to old business. We have the adoption of the fiscal year 21 revenue and expenditure budget. Mr. Barrett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you are aware, we have spent many hours this year finalizing this budget. What you have presented for you, before you, is the final recommended budget. There are, as discussed at the budget public hearing, this does include the CARES Act funding that came in, the $2.5+ million of CARES Act funding that's come in, and it also includes $56,000 and something that Mr. Counts got in CARES Act funding as well, that has been added into this budget since your public hearing. So Ms. Collins got some insurance numbers finalized from VACO, and those have been adjusted, so we have actual numbers, which is very good. It keeps us from having to be changing and moving numbers throughout the year, and those numbers have been inserted. But staff's recommendation is for the adoption of the revenue budget and the expenditure budget that is presented before you.
I will say, Mr. Bear left out a really important part. Dr. Poole and Katrina and Sarah at the school board office have also been working extremely hard, and we were notified last week that little over 1.5 million was what the school board was going to be able to have as carryover. So this greatly changed the bottom line of our budget. And we appreciate all their hard work. And, we knew from the beginning with everything going on that we were going to have to pull some out of reserves, but now we're pulling less than, is it 300,000?
When you take the 2.5 that's coming from the CARES money and 1.5 with the school board amount unspent, it's between $200,000 and $300,000 that would have to be coming out of our general fund reserves right now.
Entertain a motion to adopt the fiscal year 21 revenue and expenditure budget.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions or discussions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. And I would like to echo what Mr. Bear said. I appreciate everybody's hard work. I know we had a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion, work sessions on this, and I think we've addressed some much-needed issues in the county. And at the end of the day, I feel comfortable that we were good stewards with the taxpayer dollars. But there's going to be some much-needed improvements in Wythe County. Moving on to under old business appointments. Mr. Bear, we've got, looks like 4.
Yes, the first one is CPMT, and you have a recommendation letter on page 57 of your package to request to appoint Mr. Jason Childers to serve on the CPMT as a parent representative.
Entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Jason Childers to the CPMT board.
Make that motion.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So,
Next, Mr. Chairman, is Mount Rogers Planning District Commission. Mr. Bill Dixon announced his resignation sometime back, and we have a vacancy to fill Mr. Dixon's position. If not any recommendations or names, staff will reach out and see if we can contact some people and see if they're interested. The other Mount Rogers Planning District Commission, Mr. Tim Reeves' term has expired. He is on the executive committee. If he is reappointed, he would remain on the executive committee in his executive role. If we do not reappoint that position, then it just goes away because it's an executive position.
Mountain Cap, did we ever find out, are they still in operation?
They are still in operation. They are no longer running the Head Start programs. We still need a board member to represent on that board. We don't have any Board of Supervisors members currently serving on that board that I'm aware of. And it doesn't have to be a Board of Supervisors member. It can be. A lot of what they're associated with now is they've got some learning programs at their location, and they're also still doing a lot of weatherization projects is what they're doing.
When do they meet, Mr. Bear?
They meet in the evenings. I I don't remember the exact date and time. I could find out if you may be interested, Mr. Terry.
Yes, see when it's available, and if we need an appointment, I don't mind serving on it if
Okay.
it'll fit in my schedule.
I will confirm that they're still meeting in the evenings.
And New River Mount Rogers Workforce Development Board,
They're constantly looking for representatives primarily from the industry, business sector to serve on their board.
do you know when they meet? I may have somebody. that's
We've looked
interested.
at it and I don't remember it.
Will you find out and shoot us all an email? Because I may know somebody that's interested in that. Does any board member have any appointments? Anything else, Mr. Barry?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Moving on to reports, treasurer's report, Ms. Gwen. Happy New Year's Eve.
Yes, I was going to tell you, Happy New Year's Eve. So we get 2 a year in the government world, that's for sure. I feel like it's been since last New Year's Eve since I've been here, but I think it's been close to that because I think there's been that much time to pass. But I have a lot of things to go over this morning just to kind of get all of you up to date on where we're at with the office. But I'll start with the May financial report that you received in your packet. Currently, the consolidated account, well, not currently, but as of the end of May, excuse me, the consolidated account contained a balance of $62,315,390. And of that, the balance that was in the general fund was $40,611,361. So we've of course, continuing our operations through June. I know you all been on the discussions of sales tax and things like that. For May, the amount we got in May, or excuse me, for June, that was actually for April, was holding steady. So I think all of us supporting our stores that had all of our necessities and supported our hoarding for the most part, I think has kept us pretty afloat as far as that's concerned. So maybe as our supply dwindles down may depend on how we go going forward. Are there any questions on the financial report? I feel like I'm so far away, I can't. I'm having to yell.
6 feet's a long way when you're 4'10", ain't it?
I have to throw my eggs further to get them to you, to hit you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so moving on, our collections, I wanted to give you an update. This is going to be as of the end of business day on Friday, because as I was pulling the numbers yesterday, we didn't have everything posted to the ledger yet. But overall, with our tax collections, with real estate and personal property combined, we're at a 96.5% collection rate, and that's compared to what we billed, not what is budgeted, but to what is billed out, which based on the last report, I had submitted a written report to Mr. Bayer back in April that gave you all the percentages up through the end of March. So we're at about a 3.5% increase just from March. But individual breakdown, real estate's at a 97.9% collection rate, personal properties at a 95.1%. Our license fees, right now, we're at a little over 87% on the license fees specifically, which those kind of function a little differently. Taxes related to the Grouse Ridge Road project, with those billing out, we're at 52% collection just on those taxes specifically, because those are kind of in addition to our other tax base that we have. But overall, that's kind of where we're at. I'm very pleased with where we're at with our collections, but we're continuing with different things to just try to have our money coming in, whether it's through the door or over the phone line or through the mail, however it applies. But in my last written report, I had mentioned the DMV stops. We uploaded DMV stops for delinquent personal property taxes on May the 18th. In our mass upload, we uploaded 2,100 stops. So We've been working on the, what I label the rejected list, which are those vehicles and taxpayers that stops can't be put on. Some of those folks already have a stop on them, some don't, and we're able to manually put a stop on. So we're continuing to work on that. Working on other collections as far as issuing warrants and debt. This summer, I do have a strong desire to start working toward issuing wage and bank liens for our collections, so we'll kind of see how things continue to play out. Relation to real estate, renewed our contract with Taxing Authority Consulting Services out of Richmond. They are the collection agency and the attorneys that handle our real estate tax collections, and if necessary, take that process to a judicial tax sale. Thus far, I've submitted 27 parcels this month for a total of $118,000, which on average, that's not a lot, but there are parcels that owe taxes, for example, from 2011 to 2019, but they may only total $1,200. But I'm trying to clean up those back years. So you have a lot of those that I'm really looking at the years that they owe, because they qualify if they owe 2 or more years of taxes. But I'm really looking at those older years, but also looking at balances as well, that we can try to get that money in, get those records cleaned up. As mentioned with the tax sale, the attorneys put forth every effort to get the taxpayer in a payment plan, things like that, to get them to pay so that they don't end up potentially losing their property. But if it goes to the point of a tax sale, that does have to be approved by the circuit court judge. So that's not something that we can just willy-nilly, so to speak, say we're selling your property. We can start that process. The collections are then out of our hands. But if the taxes aren't paid and it goes to sale, they either have to buy it back or they do lose it. So that's kind of how that balances out. So with all these collections, that brings me to this time of year. The board generally opts to publish the delinquent real estate list in the local newspaper. And Code of Virginia does give you the authority to do that for any taxes that are delinquent as of June the 30th. I'm not sure if you're looking at pursuing that again this year, but one thing I would ask that you again do, as you've done the last year, maybe 2 years, is to consider publishing both the delinquent 2019 real estate and personal property list online and put that on the county website. I'll be honest, some people view it as public shaming. It's not public shaming, it's collections. We all have to pay, and it's just the way that it is. It's not public shaming. It's just trying to collect what is owed to the county. As far as I'm concerned, in the list, the only taxpayers that I can remove from the list in submitting that to you all for however you choose to handle the publication of it is only if a taxpayer is in an active bankruptcy case. Those are the only people that are omitted from those lists. So, but I would ask that you consider that. Any questions or concerns about potentially doing that?
Typically, we get a list, and what I'd ask, if you don't mind to give us a list of real estate and personal property, we can put it in the next agenda. And we usually advertise we put the real estate in the newspaper, but we didn't do
The
both
list
of them
is too
online.
big for
Personal property.
personal property.
And usually by that point, I work with Mr. Bayer, Ms. Collins. We try to update the list because we'll have some that'll pay from now until whatever time point that's their deadline to have it published. So it just depends on how you want to handle that. So, but we can either publish the June 30th or what I'll call the July 1 list, or we can do an update when you're ready to publish. But I would ask that you continue to do that. As far as budget, departmental budget, I do appreciate the budget that you've given me for this year, especially the increases that I was allotted. In asking for increases, I try to decrease in other areas that I feel like that I don't necessarily need that much money to have to spend, and I'm not going to be wasteful with it. So what increases you did give me, I do appreciate very much. So thank you all for your hard work on the budget, because it's been a long time working on budget too on a smaller scale, and it is so much fun, to say the least. Two last things, and I promise I'll quit rambling. We will be closed tomorrow for an undetermined amount of time just for the June month-end closeout and fiscal year 2020 closeout. Everyone has to be out of the Tyler Munis system. No one can be in it doing an inquiry process in anything. So I spoke with Mr. Bayer on Friday and worked with him with his departments, and we're all staying late today, as late as needed, to get everything closed out today, get it posted so that Mr. Grant can start his closeout process first thing in the morning, and hopefully we can get a few hours ahead on that process, that we're not closed and not able to conduct regular business within the treasurer's office. So I'm trying to find a way to limit that as much as possible.
If I may interrupt at that time, we'll be closing our office at 3 o'clock this afternoon so that we can do the closeout. Typically, closeout's done and it goes back to her office the next morning. We'll do that this afternoon and go down to her office 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever time they get it done, so it can all be processed and in there. Staff and everything will still be here, just will not be taking any payments after 3 o'clock.
And one other thing, at this point, we are still closed to the public as far as the treasurer's office is concerned. However, we are waiting on taxpayers in the hallway that are coming into the building. We're still processing payments over the phone. The COVID, one potential benefit, you could call it, of having that is it did bring attention to our payment box. So a lot of people discovered where our payment box was actually located, even though we've explained and kind of tried to direct them. So in a roundabout way, that has helped a lot, but a lot of people are still using that box. And so we're just continuing on and doing whatever we can at this point. So that's all the rambling I have. Mr. Vaught, you have to have a question.
No, I just got a comment.
Okay.
You heard my spiel about the budget and looking down through your report. Thank you for all y'all's hard work on the collection side. You look at your delinquent personal property taxes, and y'all have exceeded what was put in there by 284%. And you talk about the hit we've taken on sales tax, food tax. That extra $184,000 that your office was able to bring in goes a long way of making that shortfall. And thank you for all your hard work. And it's, on the revenue side, it's really good to look down through there on the percentage and see all the columns that are over 100%. And I think
That excites
we're
me.
very blessed. A lot of counties would love to have that. So thank you to your staff.
Thank you for your comments. I'm very proud of what we've done, and my staff especially, because we put forth every effort at any point in time to bring in what we can. We'll have taxpayers to call, and they only want to pay on one thing specifically, but I've told my staff, mention that they also owe this, because they sometimes, we do forget things, so sometimes they're not aware of how much they may truly owe. But, that's the purpose of us, is to collect, and my comment is always, if it's not coming in the door, it can't be going back out the door. So we have to have money continuously coming in. But I'm very proud of those numbers, because I look at those percentages, and a couple of them are close to 100%. I'm not quite thrilled about that, but I'll take it. They're not off by too far, but some of the others offset. But I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish this last fiscal year. And the new budget, I felt like we could exceed our collections. So there's a lot of those revenue items that were increased. And that just, that means we need to work just as hard and even harder to meet those revenue needs as well going forward. But thank you.
Anybody else have anything else for Ms. Quinn?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, you mentioned delinquent taxes, and that reminded me. Would you, at your convenience, look at parcel 51-141C and advise me of the delinquent taxes on that?
Who's the owner? Is that Brown property?
Yes. I think that's the
Yeah.
name of it. And because I'd like for the board to discuss options with the town of Grow Retreat and you of how we may be able to handle that.
I had been talking with the main person I deal with at TACS about that property, and it had previously been on the sale when Mr. Crockett submitted the parcels back in 2013. But the concern is the fact it's a house only.
Yes.
And so in talking with the attorney, he said, not really sure how to approach that because it's unusual. You can sell land without a house, but it's unusual to sell a house without land, especially a house that's affixed to the property. So we talked about it, and he had asked me to resubmit that property to them so it would kind of get back on the front burner for them. So I'd done that. Those taxes go back to, I believe it's 2003, and I want to say it's like $7,000, but I can send you the detail on that.
To fill you all in, I've been meaning to ask Lori about it, but since you've given them information. This is property down adjoining the railroad down in Rural Retreat. The town of Rural Retreat and the Rural Retreat, I think maybe Depot Foundation has had some interest. The house is vacant, it's abandoned, but it's sitting on Norfolk and Southern property. So it's sort of hard for her to do a tax sale on it and get rid of it. And there's some options that the town of Rural Retreat would like to look at, maybe if they could get in possession of that and demolish the house and maybe work with Norfolk and Southern to somehow get the land. And if we're not going to be able to collect the taxes on it due to this, been on Norfolk Southern property, maybe we can work out some type of deal with the landowners of that. So that's where the discussion is on here.
This property has always been one of those properties. It's been in my wheelhouse since 2001, and it's just one of those properties. So, but I'll send that to you when I get back to the office so that
Thank
you'll
you.
have that. Anyone have anything else?
I don't think so.
Well, it's great to see smiling faces and not smiling eyes, so have a good day.
Thanks, Lori.
Commissioner, Miss Kathy Vaught.
Good morning.
Morning.
I don't have a whole lot to tell you, except that we're working on the real estate book for 2020 and the personal property book for 2020. It seems to be going well. I think that we'll be able to finish within the deadline. Anybody have any questions?
I'll be, just one comment, not on the real estate book, but she does, we were starting the process of reassessment.
Yes. And I
And-
think that they're supposed to start their field work in August, is what I've been told.
Miss, now that budgets are behind us, Miss Kathy and I will be working closely to put out a proposal. She has recommended at this point in time, it is time to move forward to another assessment software package. And we've got some ideas of the ones we like, but we have to go out for procurement and get those in. And probably the board will be working with Ms. Vaught on some interviews of some firms to do that, and working with with the reassessment folks to implement that as they do the reassessment over the next year and a half.
And we need to make sure we get with Mr. Farley and do a
Let
press
people know.
release, let people know that the
Yeah.
reassessors are coming out. I'm sure Chief Foster would appreciate that, so we don't get 500 phone calls about people pulling up in people's driveways.
So we'll wait till they get started to kind of do that. Anybody?
Anybody have
Thank you.
anything else for Miss Kathy? Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you, Kathy.
Commonwealth Attorney, Mr. Jones, I don't see him in attendance. He's probably back in court since they apparently got started. Sheriff's Office, Chief Deputy Foster.
I just want to take a few minutes to echo some of Lori's sentiments to the board as far as the budget this year. We really appreciate you being supportive of the office. I know that I've been here in past meetings, and some of you made it really public. We're really grateful that we're not experiencing what we're seeing around the country right now. We have 6 positions that were in jeopardy this year. The board stepped up to the plate, helped us save those. And I can't fathom the thoughts of having 6 less officers on the road this year than what we've got already. That, the automotive needs that we had, we just want to thank you and really appreciate your support of the office, and we'll continue to do you a good job. Just want to thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? I'm sorry. Thank you. Clerk of Court, I don't see Mr. Musser. General Registrar, Mr. Counts.
Leave my stick behind.
Now, you can
You
bring
better
it.
bring it.
You may want to let stuff settle, because I know Chief Deputy Foster's been at the beach, so.
Oh, yeah. Well, kind of like Ms. Quinn said here, I'm glad the podium's back here. It's a shorter walk for me, so. But I just wanted to give y'all an update on our election from last Tuesday. Everything went really smoothly. Our turnout was about the same as it was in March. We had 1,220 folks vote. Out of that, there were only 80 folks that voted absentee, so the rest of those folks did come out and vote in person. It was a bit of a change. In the Maytown Council election, we saw about 60% of our voters that participated in that election vote absentee by mail. So, that was a big change for our office. We typically don't see those numbers unless it's in a presidential election. So, like I said, it was definitely a different pace, but we got through the town council election smoothly as well. We had 36 officers of election that we used around the county. Those folks, truly, I can't, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been able to make it through this election. Their dedication, really, I was expecting to get no's from everybody I called, because around the state, registrars were having so much trouble finding folks. So we didn't really get too many no's, had a lot of folks participate. We picked up several new officers in this process as well that wanted to volunteer with us. So, in terms of PPE, Mr. Crawford has worked with me, but we really haven't had to use anything through the CARES Act thus far. The Department of Elections has provided us, has pretty much sent us everything that we've needed thus far. So, as Mr. Baer had indicated, our office did receive $56,000 in CARES Act funding from the Department of Elections. This money can be used for several different areas. Additional PPE if we need it, supplies for increased mailings and voting by mail, or folks voting absentee by mail. So we probably are going to see an increase in that moving towards November. There's several areas I'm working on to get the public informed for this. Like I said, we'll have that 45-day no excuse window, so it's definitely going to see a lot more participation than what typically we have on election day. So like I said, I see that. I'm not sure. I know I had spoken in our budget meeting about folks coming and voting in person in that early voting window. I'm not sure now if we'll see as many. Probably closer to the election we will, but I'm not sure if we'll see as many in that whole 45-day window. So like I said, I anticipate seeing a huge increase in absentee voting by mail. As Ms. Gwynn and Chief Deputy Foster said, I'd like to thank y'all for the budget increases that we did receive and that we requested, particularly, once again, to our officers of election. I think that increase for them and their dedication that they have, I think it'll really go a long way with them come November. So, any questions for me about anything?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just mention I'm meeting with the Electoral Board sometime tomorrow and Lennon to talk about space for the upcoming election for it's not called absentee. What's the correct terminology for it?
The no excuse period.
No excuse period, thank
Yeah.
you. So we'll have discussions, be coming back to you all and seeing what options we have for them to have a space for people to vote.
Yeah. And a space that's, and the good thing is too, another great thing around the county, being able to use the schools as polling places. That was another issue that other registrars were having. There were a lot of people just saying, well, we can't use our building, so we're not gonna let you use the building. So we didn't run into that here, thankfully. So like I said, I think, you know, and all of our polling places are spaced out very well for folks, so that's kind of something too we're like to look at going for the no excuse period to make sure folks, you know, we have plenty of space for that happening. So.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Counts? No. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank y'all. I'd like to
you
hang
very much.
around, but I'm gonna go get an X-ray on this.
You dropped something, Lena.
Oh.
We came prepared and we failed to set it over there. There we go.
It looks bad that you waited till Lynn spoke.
Well, you mentioned it, and I was like,
Yeah.
we brought stuff just so everybody could have it, and we forgot, so,
Next we have, Dr. Shelton. Was she gonna call in?
well, she's gonna call her, we'll call her about
Can
11 o'clock.
we can
Yeah.
skip her and
Yes.
get, cause I know, Mr. Lewis is sitting back there and he's giddy to come up here. Give us some good news from the, Industrial Advancement Alliance.
Morning, Josh.
Good morning. I thought you put that up here just for me or something. I'll wait.
No, he looked down on the agenda and seen Dr. Shelton's name.
Spray the phone.
I'll wait for her to get this loaded for us. I appreciate you welcoming me today and giving an update. I've had the opportunity to meet most of you. I know several participated in the orientation we had in December, and then the VACO Day and reception where we hosted the legislators. So it's good to see you all again. I'm glad everybody's healthy. Do you have the I just want to give an update. Stephen asked me to come in and kind of give an overview of where we are. So I'll skip through some of this. Some of it is more organizational overview, and we'll get to a little bit of the meat of what we've been doing, what we plan to do next year. So as you know, the organization is a partnership between the 6 localities of Bland, Grayson, Carroll, Galax, Wythe, and Smith. We also have partnerships with Virginia Highlands Community College, Wytheville Community College, and a close partnership with the Tobacco Commission. We're also supported financially by several private sector entities, most of these being the utilities, several financial institutes, with AEP being ahead on this. Since we're focused on industrial, they have a vested interest in what we do. We couldn't succeed without our private partners, so they bring financial resources to the table as well as assistance when we have projects. So I always like to shout them out every opportunity I get. The organization itself is a regional organization in the state of Virginia that is fairly pervasive. You know, there's actually 17 regional organizations across the state where counties, private sector institutes, they get together and they form 501c3s where they can pull resources and market themselves and attract industry and jobs and other businesses. The reason for that, as I said, is pulling of resources. Many rural localities, it's a savings to them by pulling resources. They do not have to come out of pocket with a lot of things I'll cover in a few minutes. Regional marketing is another strength of this. Several localities for Washington County, for example, there's about 100 Washington counties in the country. So it's hard to be unique in that atmosphere. And again, by also pulling resources, you bring in private sector funds that you wouldn't be able to get at the local level as a government entity. So for us, we're the lead organization for the region for economic development. Our focus has mainly been industrial. We're starting to branch out to more commercial, recreational, other types of businesses, depending on the need of the locality. Our ultimate goal is to grow and retain jobs, attract capital investment, provide leadership, strategic planning, and identify areas where we can get grant resources, capital stack to help the localities with their initiatives. And hopefully the outcome of this is that people, the site consultants, the real estates, the businesses, they recognize the Virginia 8177 Crossroads brand. They know who we are. They know the strengths of the region, the assets that we have. And ultimately, the goal is to stop population contraction by 2025. I'll cover some of the information in a minute, but as you all know, one of the challenges for the region is demographics. We have an aging population. Our population is shrinking. It's probably been trending that way for about 15 years. So we kind of have some targets that we need to meet to ensure that we're stopping that outflow of people, providing opportunities for folks in the region, and bringing higher paying jobs, which increases the expenditures, the sales taxes, and the things that all these localities depend on to pay for their bills, to pay for their students, to pay for their schools, their police departments. We've recently had a couple of expansions. This is the current organization structure. We are led by an executive committee made up of the chief administrative officer of each locality. Mr. Bear serves on the executive committee along with his fellow 5 chief administrative officers from the other localities in the city of Galax. I also report to an investor committee. Our private sector investors have a seat at the table. We meet with them regularly to find out what they see in the marketplace, how we can do better as far as an outreach and marketing. We have a partnership with the PDC where we share 2 positions, an admin assistant and marketing social media manager. And we currently brought on a business retention expansion specialist. 5 of our 6 localities do not have local economic development staff. So we try to fill the void on the business retention and expansion side. And we're also bringing on an economic development manager to help with local initiatives. Again, the capital stacks, finding grants, finding monies, developing plans to augment our activities, increase quality of life, improve the business environment. And why we do what we do, you'll see these are the regional groups across the state. Toward the bottom, you'll see us highlighted in black. From 2006 to 2011, we had a net loss of 4.8, basically 4,800 jobs across the region. 6% net loss in jobs. From 2011 to 2016, we kind of steadied the ship. I've been here since 2015. 2015, 2016, we started to get some more activity in the marketplace with manufacturing jobs. We basically brought in 100 net new jobs over that 5 years, and that's still not good, but compared to the previous 5 years, that was an improvement. And what we're trying to do now is expand that. And the way we do that is we target different sectors. Again, you'll see it's blocked off here, we're highlighted. These are target sectors identified by McKinsey, which is a national think tank research firm, consultant agency. My organization mainly focuses in the distribution of advanced materials and food target sectors. And the goal, if you'll kind of try to extrapolate this or discern it, is toward the bottom is you see 10-year job growth for no contraction. We need to attract 700 net new jobs by 2026 to ensure that we do not shrink. And that's bare minimum to ensure population does not contract. Ultimately, the goal is if you see the 10-year total impact, if we do the things that we think that we can do and some of the initiatives put on by the state, we think we can attract somewhere around 2,000 jobs. Again, Lot 24 in Wythe County is a big part of that. That project alone could bring anywhere from 500 to 1,000 jobs and stabilize the whole region. Other localities outside of our region impact this. You have Volvo and Pulaski that plays a big role in our regional economy indirectly. So when they have 700 people laid off, what does that mean for us? I would assume that 200 or 300 of those people live in our region. So right now they're expected to lay off 500. The good news about that is when we have projects coming to the region, we have 500 people that we can market as employable. They can come to work for some of these projects looking at Lot 24. When you have 3.5% unemployment, the numbers do not look well for us when we're trying to attract 500 to 1,000 employee projects. So right now is an opportunity for us with Volvo's furloughs and layoffs to really market Lot 24 and try to get a project in here. So how we do it, again, marketing, business outreach. I serve on the Go Virginia Regional Council, Workforce Development Board. We do business retention and expansion. And again, we bring in private sector funds, grant funding, and assist with special projects. The challenge I mentioned earlier, median age of the region is 46. If I was able to click through those years, you see the age distribution right above that. If I was able to click through the years, you could constantly see, you know, the block, the chart kind of moving its way down as the population continues to grow older, and it also continues to shrink. So these are things that we're trying to, these are macro level issues that we can't control on a day-to-day or year-to-year basis, but there are things that we can do to try to negate the impact. Some of the stuff that we do actively, we do marketing, advertising, digital advertisements. I'll cover the numbers in a few minutes. These are a couple of examples of some of the full-page ads we put in site selection magazines, real estate magazines, digital ads on the web. Again, regional promotional pieces. Every time we have successes or we have programs that we'd like to market, we push these out. We get these in front of the site selection community, the real estate folks, the business leaders that are leading these projects. We have different ways of targeting them. There's certain databases that we purchase to find out who the leaders or companies are, how likely they are to expand, and how do we target these ads to these folks to make sure that we're getting in front of them. Digital media is a big part of what we do, especially LinkedIn. We do quality of life work. Again, you see some of the industrial ads we put off on the right, which is Progress Park, announcements of jobs, successes in the region, and again, just overall marketing for the 6 localities. Of course, website. A lot of this is data driven. We have site selection data where people can come explore the sites, explore the information, customize their data to their specific industry, to their specific needs. All this we provide on our website, and we market the website and try to get you know, people engaged with us. Sector sheets, industrial flyers. Again, this is Progress Park's flyer. Some of the industry sectors where we break down the industries within that field, the jobs, the wages, the comps for the region and the state, demographic information, workforce training information. Again, we kind of run the gambit. And this is an example of a video we just produced for Progress Park. I don't know if you can hit play over there. You might have to.
Won't play.
It won't play.
I'll jump in here. This is a very neat video that he has put together, and I don't see it clearly right here, but basically the video shows the park, and then it shows these buildings popping up on it. And I believe that one is lot number 1 right there on the right. Okay. But anyway, it goes all the way down to lot 24, which I think you see in the distance down there, and it shows, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 million square foot buildings showing up on it. So it's a very good video that shows capabilities of what size buildings could go on the lots.
All right, 1 second. If you can't get it going, we'll move on. I have these other marketing materials that we send and we mail out to the site selection community. They're video mailers. You open up, the video plays. This video is loaded onto those 3. You can take a look. There he is.
Does that have music with it?
Well,
Should have put David Southers down further on the agenda.
That's what I was gonna say. Need a good IT man, don't we?
I'll leave the video player behind and you can take a look. That's it, but it's not playing on the screen now. Oh, there you go.
We'll watch it on the video player.
Yeah. It's not,
Okay.
it's probably not compatible with Windows 95. Took a global pandemic for us to get some new computers.
Wow. Well, they're on the video players, and you can, again, pass them around. But we develop pieces like this, again, to really highlight the investment that the counties, especially Wythe County, has put into these sites, the infrastructure that's in place, what the utilities have provided. So back to the organization itself, this will provide some information about where we're headed. This is the annual report I just presented to the board last week. On the left, you'll see basically all increases from last year based on activity, project opportunities. That includes expansion projects, new projects. And how we categorize that is, I guess, prospects that actually we submit RFIs for, or we have site visits with, or we propose incentives in partnership with the state. So we've had 32 opportunities last year. Again, 30 of those were RFI submissions. We've reached out to directly and had communications with 144 different businesses. We hired the business retention and expansion specialist this past year. He's conducted 25 visits with our manufacturing community up to this point. He started his position in December, which is pretty impressive with understanding that COVID hit in March. So he was fairly active those first 3 or 4 months. The goal was to hit 60 business visits in the year. Overall, there's been 239 jobs in queue or announced for the fiscal year. That includes a large project in Carroll. We just had a project announcement in Grayson last week, which was 59 jobs. A smaller project, I think, in queue for Wythe County right now, and $20 million of capital investment announced. Toward the bottom, you'll see we've brought in $85,000 of grant money from Tobacco Commission, and we were just awarded on Friday $100,000 from the Go Virginia Resilience and Recovery grant program to go into manufacturing companies in partnership with the MTC, do evaluations of their operations, find out where they might have shortcomings in health and safety. So maybe they need physical barriers, PPE, and also to explore and evaluate their operation efficiencies. So we'll be able to provide that free of charge. We'll use our business retention expansion specialists to reach out to them. We'll cover the cost of the evaluation, and phase 2 of that is I'm trying to pursue some of the CARES grant funding to help those companies with implementations of those evaluations. So if they need touchless systems, touchless entryways, again, physical barriers, PPE protocol, we can help cover the cost of that implementation. Marketing digital outreach, we had over 300,000 advertisements in circulation last year, and 70,000 plus digital impressions. I mean, we were on 70,000 screens at some point in time while somebody's scrolling through, or if we sent out a digital ad. On the right, some of the information at the top is more via capacity and staffing, where we've expanded staffing. You know, when I started in this position in 2015, I was a staff of 1. We were closing down the office. We had a budget of $170,000. There was no activity, no pipeline of projects. So from that time up to 2020, we've made significant progress. We've really grown the organization. Our outreach and impact has grown substantially, exponentially, and these numbers tell the story. At the bottom, I think some of the regional indicators that would be of interest to you all would be that housing values continue to go up in the region. We're incrementally raising our educational attainment. Interesting of note is we have some of the highest associate degree attainments in the state, and I think we can continue to trend that way to provide some of the skilled workforce we need for the manufacturing companies. Household income mean, the average, I know a lot of times people report the median, continues to grow. But as you see, one of the most troubling signs is over the last 5 years, we've lost another 2,000 or 3,000 folks. So again, that kind of hangs over us. I mentioned hiring an economic development manager. We just announced last week as well that Nicole Hare, which was the deputy town manager for Pulaski, will be joining us on July 6th. to assist with some local economic development projects moving into this next fiscal year. She'll work closely with several of our localities, developing strategies, plans, and again, pursuing grants for enhancements of the opportunity zones or downtowns or facade grants and things of that nature. So we're excited to have her. She's got 14 years of experience in Christiansburg, planning and zoning, spent the past 4 or 5 with Pulaski, and we're excited to have her join the team. So with that, I wanted to open up to questions to talk specifically to any concerns or topics that you have.
I don't have any questions, but just a comment. It always amazes me how much you all truly do, and a lot of people don't realize it, so thank you. It definitely doesn't go unnoticed here.
Well, thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. We haven't, and Stephen knows, we don't spend a lot of time marketing ourselves probably internally enough. We're an external-facing organization. We worked a lot with legislators. We helped get, House Bill 222 passed, which was a 0% corporate income tax rate for people locating in rural regions. We was able to change the code and get the counties the ability to count tobacco funds as cash match for COF. All these things saves the counties and localities thousands and thousands of dollars, and we don't promote that internally, and that's okay as long as the folks that understand what's going on and you guys are informed about what we're doing. We think you guys are the most important part of that. So I appreciate the comment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's, we might not hear VIAA a lot, but we're all the time hearing Josh Lewis this, Josh Lewis that.
Depends on what they're saying.
And it's always positive, so, you're kind of, I don't want to say behind the scenes, but out of sight, out of mind type, but we do appreciate what you and your staff do.
And I will comment with the addition of Jake, who basically focuses on business retention efforts and going out and meeting with local businesses. And sometimes it's just the JIDA does it, but having somebody come in with a different organizational name and face appears to be paying dividends also, and they've been doing those jointly with the JIDA. And we're optimistic that we may have some internally expansion projects coming forth that have been worked on and will come to fruition with some assistance from this. So it's been a good partnership.
And I don't know, I don't know about Northern Virginia, Eastern Virginia, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find the type of support that we offer in Southwest Virginia for industries. I don't, I've never lived there. I don't know how, what their makeup is, but, with the JIDA and VIAA and all these other alphabetic organizations, if you want to open a business in Southwest Virginia, and it's you can't throw a golf ball without hitting at least 2 organizations that will go out of their way to help you locate here. So
I think, speaking to Stephen's point on the BRE side, that was one of the gaping voids in the region when I began. Most localities have their own economic development organization that really focuses on that. I mentioned earlier, 5 of our 6 do not have local economic development staff. And first couple of years, I was like, that was my goal. I was like, if we can get into BRE, that's low-hanging fruit that's in your community. And I can tell you that, so of Jake's 25 visits, I think he currently is working 6 expansion projects that would have never been found if he hadn't reached out to him. He's already closed on one and was able to provide several $100,000 of support to the company. They're bringing on 12, 15 jobs. Again, there are 2 expansion opportunities here in Wythe County that he's currently working on. Again, partnering with the Joint IDA. We're not in competition with the Joint IDA. We're here to augment their activities and provide support. Again, we were formed as a marketing organization, but there's more to economic development than just telling people your story. So, again, I think brighter days are ahead. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, and we'll just keep hammering at it.
anybody else have anything else for Josh? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to Water Committee report.
The Water Committee met on June 16, 2020, and recommends the following. Approving the extension to the Ricky Road Water Line Extension Project.
Mr. Baird, you want to summarize that?
I'll be glad to. Mr. McRoberts may want to jump in here and speak to it, but basically, we bid out the Ricky Road Water Line project up to the point that was originally designed. The bids came in low enough, we had leftover money. There were some residents just north of there that we sent surveys out and received positive feedback from several of those that would be interested in connecting to water. So we're looking at extending up there. It picks up 6 or 7 additional customers within the 350 feet, but then there are some customers outside of the 350 feet that also would probably run lines to connect to the water up there. Does that summarize it, Mr. McRoberts?
That is a private driveway and part of that.
Yep.
It's hard for us to take the water up there.
Coming from committee does need a second. Anybody else have any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 Aye. The second thing was approving the engineering agreement with Peden Bortz LLC for the 2020 Water and Wastewater Comprehensive Study. Get my eyes to work.
We just discussed that. Do you want to summarize?
Basically, you all, the Water Committee did interviews, we'd advertised for firms, you all had the money in the budget for this coming year. This just approves a contract with them to start that study immediately.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing. I think Peden Bortz probably knows more about the water system in the county than most everybody else does. And I think it was a good choice.
Anybody else have anything? Here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 Anything else from the Water Committee, Mr. Horny?
Not that I know of.
Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Building and Grounds Committee met on the 16th of June, and we looked at bid proposals for the mowing. It was broken down into different areas, and each company bid on the different areas. And we chose to go with Miller Lawn Care for the whole thing, instead of breaking it down by different areas. We just went with the whole. Might have been able to save a couple dollars, but it would have been a whole lot harder to try to keep up with several different mowing companies, so.
Mr. Baird, is there anything you want to add on that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, basically the summary of that is correct. This is a new venture for us. We did receive several bids in on this project. The advantage that we get out of this is it helps out our buildings and grounds staff and our parks and recreation staff. At this point in time, with everything going on with COVID and all of the things that need to happen in our courtrooms and our courtrooms building, this saves Mr. Bauer's staff from being out around these sites roughly, 3 days a week, going around and doing all these. So we think this is a good time to step into this. And the prices you see are the prices for those sites, and it's estimated they'll be mowed weekly. Obviously, dry spells are going to extend that out, but it's a 1-year situation here, and we'll see how it goes.
So the actual proposal is that we accept Miller's Lawn Care bid proposal for the 16 areas beginning July 1st, 2020.
Mr. Bowers, do you want to note your support or disagreement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I concur with the acceptance of this. It's essentially going to be hiring 2 additional people for my department. With all the COVID that's been going on, the jail hasn't been sending down inmates. In the past years, I have been supplementing my department through inmate usage right now. which has been 2 to 3. At times, I've had as many as 9 inmates working for me. Right now, I'm getting 0, which has put extreme burden on my department. We're due to buy new equipment as our equipment. I've got one lawnmower and sitting down there in pieces. I don't even know that I can sell it as a lawnmower anymore to keep one running. And so now is the optimal time to be able to take advantage of this particular situation. And in a year or two, it may be advantageous for the county to take it back over mowing, but right now, I think is a good time to accept this proposal and take advantage of this. It's going to allow me to move on with certain projects that we have lined up.
Thank you. I've only been saying that for, 3 years now, so glad we finally got it done. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I've just got a question, Mr. Chairman. This is probably for Mr. Bayer, and Jeff Miller is a good friend of mine. So I probably need to abstain. I just want some direction before I cast a vote, please.
It's not I'll
It's not a family member.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're not a partnership.
No, sir.
He doesn't mow your grass, does
He does not mow my grass.
Not gonna start mowing it for free, is he?
No, sir.
he? Any other questions? Here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. Congratulations, Mr. Bowers. Enjoy your extra 3 days a week of work.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bowers just mentioned an item that came up. I went to the New River Regional Jail meeting last Friday, and Superintendent Winston, he anticipated that it will be the first of the next calendar year before there will be any trustees coming out of the jail. He said with alternative sentencing guidelines, those that are getting alternative sentencing, aren't coming into the jail. And the ones that are in the jail are probably the ones that need to be in the jail and are not the ones that are trusted to be a trustee. So,
Well, with everything going on, I think the last part of what you just said is the part that worries me. I don't want to say they're not locking up low-level offenders when they need to be locked up, but they're more liberal with bonds and PR bonds, low cash bonds, stuff like that. And that's what worries me on the trustee side of it. So, before, we were gonna call Dr. Shelton at 11.
yes, she didn't give you any time, did she?
We, before we move on, let's take a 5-minute recess. Is everybody ready? All right, I'll call us back to order. You'll move into new business and come back, Dr. Shelton?
Yes,
Find my spot here. Moving on to new business, have the consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
So approved. Moving on to staff reports. Buildings and grounds, solid waste, and he's done left. We'll move on to,
Go ahead. He's been here for an hour and 20 minutes.
And then he leaves.
I hadn't even looked up. I thought he was he was behind Mr. Ennis there.
And then Stephen told Darlene to go, and she just got up and left too, so we'll just skip everybody.
Let me ask the question while we're waiting on him. What's the timeline on this Ricky Road?
The contract has been signed. We should be doing the closing with rural development here in July. I don't remember the date's construction on it, but I will look at the contract and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Come on, Billy.
All right, walked into that one, didn't I?
You got 2 minutes of your allotted minute.
2 minutes of my allotted minute. First of all, I want to thank y'all for recognizing the custodial staff. I can't remember if it was last meeting or meeting before last that y'all brought it up. And that just really meant a lot. And I want to say thank you. They work hard. They got one of the dirty jobs, as Mike Rowe wanted to say. So it just really means a lot when you know, just the recognition of it all. Getting into some of the things that Buildings and Grounds has done, I don't want to like rehash status reports, but just some of the things that we were able to accomplish over the past year. We've transitioned from we got a new maintenance supervisor, which I appreciate. Then we lost a maintenance supervisor, and we've hired another one. But with that, we were able to change out 5 HVAC units that if we just contracted it out would have cost between $40,000 and $60,000. We were able to do that minus the labor, which is already budgeted in. We did that for about $16,000. So there was a significant savings from just for that position in those units. We've been able to change out boilers that would have, 2 boilers, which would have been probably $30,000 or $40,000. We're able to go into the Fairview house, and they've got a new furnace over there, natural gas. We've upgraded them so that they're not on electric anymore. They have a natural gas line running right through there. So with the position that you've given us, we've been able to facilitate, we've been able to give better service to people, responding to their needs more readily, and we've been able to save the county a ton of money in just being able to in-house some of this. There are still some things that we have to go out of house with. They're just different levels of HVAC and stuff, and we have to go out of house with it, but we've saved the county a lot of money for that, and I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention. We completed a flooring project at the library that y'all are aware of. We did what took Grayson almost 9 weeks to do. We did it in 3. So we were able to facilitate moving all the books around, working with the contractors and stuff to be able to do that. Guys worked very hard, diligently, moving lots and lots of books, tons of books around. Little things we've done, we've renovated dispatch and sheriff's office. Complete little renovation project we were able to get in from time to time. Put in new floors, we refaced the cabinets, put in some, new countertops and resurfaced that. So made that paint on the walls, made that area where they spend 24 hours a day a lot better. Some of the other projects that we do, we move paper for county admin. The department as a whole has been basically a Swiss Army knife. We do a little bit of everything for everybody. And recently we've been helping put in water lines at we're not cutting them ourselves, but we're putting in water lines at Rural Retreat Lake, the campground. And we found an existing water line too. We patched it. We're getting pretty good at this. If the water department needs any help. But no, we put in electrical service at Rural Retreat Lake to facilitate water monitoring out there. I understand they've had some rather high water bills, so we can do that. Helping out Barron Springs, doing taking care of the fire departments with some of their HVAC work, some of the electrical work and stuff as well. Building projects, some of the obvious things as the COVID-19. Sneeze guards is the top priority. Matter of fact, when I leave here, that's one of the projects I'm going to be going and making phone calls and facilitating sneeze guards throughout all of our our buildings. Wythe County was one of the first people to install UV lighting in an HVAC system. And if we weren't, we would still be waiting on materials to come in. It's the supply chain. So, you either get there first or you're waiting, 6, 8, 10 weeks for trying to get materials in. Because we were able to get to the front of the line quickly through thinking about it, we were able to get our equipment in. It's already installed. We're not waiting on it to happen. I wish I would have been more reactive with the sneeze guards, because now I'm having problems getting contractors to move forward with this and getting materials in and stuff, because there's just a backup of it all. Everybody else is already in the process of doing it. But we'll work through it and we'll get that accomplished as well. New projects that we've got going on as far as buildings and grounds, some of the new stuff that's coming in. I've already mentioned the sneeze guard. We're installing flooring in county admin. It's a little project we were able to get in. We chose to do that ourselves as opposed to a contractor, because we can stop and start the project as needed. Be able to move the project along, to move people in, a lot of moving around, working with projects. It's not something that we were going to be able to just shut the entire place down like the library and then let the contractor have at it. We needed to be able to move forward and stop and go, and working around a lot of other people that need to do their jobs as well. So we're putting in new laminate flooring. Looks really good. If you get an opportunity, it's projects in process, so we've had lots of rain days to be able to work on stuff like this. Of course, y'all just, we're subbing out the mowing, so that's going to help facilitate the people that I do have to get that accomplished. We're upgrading the lighting as well. So we got 2x2 lightings. It's ballast with T8 bulbs. We did a lighting upgrade for the county about, I guess this is when I first got here, about 9 years ago. We got some grant money, but I wasn't able to go with LEDs then because the cost just was not cost effective. Basically, in the past 10 years, LED lighting as a whole, the price has come down to the point where there's only about a $10 to $15, depending on the fixture. If I replace the ballast and 2 bulbs in one of the fixtures that we have in this room, I can buy a brand new LED lighting. What's the difference on that? Is the energy savings on the back side of that. So as we're doing some moving around, it's a slower process this time because I don't have the grant money available to me, but we're upgrading some areas and we're using some of the older stuff and we're getting rid of some stuff. I don't want to mix match because LED lighting is a lot cleaner, brighter light. We've reduced the number of fixtures in several areas. You can go into the treasurer's office as one example, one place that we've completely renovated out. It has a lot less fixtures. A lot less fixtures means they use less wattage anyhow, so they're using a whole lot less as an energy savings. We've got to, one of the things that I want to get accomplished as a veteran is I know some board members have brought this up, is getting the artillery piece refurbished down in front of the courthouse, getting some landscaping taken care of, and keeping it more up to date. We've done landscaping in the process, but in the past, but we haven't been able to continually stay on top of it and keep it looking the way that I think that the Wythe County courthouse complex should look. I just haven't had the manpower. Hopefully that will start to change. Some more pressure washing projects that I want to see get accomplished. And this is in addition to all the day-to-day. I mean, we haul off a truckload to 2 truckloads of trash every day out of the trash and recycling out of the courthouse complex in itself. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes on. Water leaks, HVAC, little electrical things, even things as simple as putting together somebody's desk or hanging a picture on a wall or refinishing an office that gets when there's turnover is the projects that we get into and stay into. But I always welcome any ideas that y'all would present or things that y'all would like to see happen. We would gladly, take those on as well and see what we can do about getting that accomplished. On the refuse side of things, trash has been abundant of late. I started to go through some numbers, and I was going to bring y'all a bunch of numbers and dazzle y'all with them. But the comparison right now between where we were at last year and where we're at this year is significant. There's month to month, there's a 10 to 15% increase in the amount of refuse that's coming through the centers. Now, what does that equal? That's about 1,000 tons a month, which is, I mean, significant. So if we keep this up, you're going to see anywhere right around a 12,000 ton increase in refuse that comes through the centers. Of course, I don't handle the transfer station side of things, so I don't know if there's a shift in the refuse that's coming. You know, if the commercial side has dropped down and that we're seeing a shift to the residential side. I haven't seen those numbers yet. I'll have to get with them and talk to them about it. But there's a significant increase in the amount of refuse that's coming through our recycling centers. We've had to, like anything else, we've had to deal with, B&M's had to deal with some turnover with the COVID-19. We have an older population that service, you know, the attendants that service it, some of them didn't want to be involved in this anymore. They just went home. But they've replaced them and been able to continue to move the trash. Has strained a little operations. The transfer station changing their hours has significantly helped that. It's given them more hours to be able to work on Fridays and Mondays to be able to take on the trash that comes in over the weekends. So, like I said, I thank the transfer station for facilitating that to help out B&M and ultimately the convenience centers in the counties.
Well, you're talking about the transfer stations. Have we done anything as far as getting them gloves that are needle puncture proof, or?
At the trash and recycling centers?
Yeah.
Yes, I have gotten some of those. I've got to, I have not facilitated passing them out. They just came in, I think it was like last week. I'll facilitate passing them on to V&M management so they can get them passed out to all of the attendants. CARES Act money, and Curtis was able to do that for us to get at least, I think we got like 30 pairs or something, so to be able to give everybody a pair, their own individual pair of gloves and a couple extras, so yes. And we've worked with training on B&M Recycling, working with their management and their staff to train them, you know, to work on training the attendants as to how to work with the residents in being able to accept, you know, trash and distribute it and stuff. And, you know, our job isn't, we take trash, so we're not trying to reject anybody's trash. We're just trying to keep a nice flow with it, work with the residents to be able to get it in, work with attitudes and how to respond if, you know, people get aggravated sometimes, or, you know, part of that is I want to do a push for, we used to have trifold pamphlets. Apparently we've run out of these. I checked this recently. We don't have them anymore. I'd like to work with Mr. Farley. He was initially on the first push of this to hand out to the residents so that they're more informed with how the operation of the centers work. If they're more informed, then, you know, we can all work together to accomplish it. Like I said, there's been a lot of trash coming in, so with that, there's been some more complaints and stuff. So, but we've been able to generally deal with these complaints to satisfy the needs of both the, you know, what the county needs to happen with removing the trash and getting the, making sure the residents are satisfied with the answers and stuff. Barron Springs is getting a new compactor with the passing of the budget. Thank y'all for that. That's a big need. Also, I want to get new signs out, get some complaints with hours. Some of our signage is dated, so I want to get it updated so as to be able to hopefully convey to all the residents. They will, sometimes they read signs and sometimes they don't. I'm probably as guilty as the next person, miss a sign, but if I put the information out there, at least I can say it was there to make them informed so that when you show up on Thursday morning, you know, about 11 o'clock trying to get rid of your trash and centers are closed on Thursday mornings, then maybe you'll know next time, or they will know. That's pretty much the overall view of what I've got going on. Do y'all have any questions for me?
What's special about Thursday morning? Why are they closed?
The schedule dictates, so Thursday mornings and Sunday mornings, they're closed. They don't open up until 1 o'clock. It's
Why?
Historically, when the county was running it, that was set up to keep everybody under over a certain number of hours for the week in the process. This goes back prior to me working for the county, I think it's late 90s. The decision was made to open on Sundays, which was a very controversial decision at that point in time. So they took and closed on Thursday mornings, I believe was what it was, to be open on Sunday afternoons. And that kept the hours at that time, they could split the shifts and everyone would still be working under, and I don't remember if they were trying to stay under 40 or what it was at that point in time.
At one time, the contractor, I don't know if he does this now, had a staff meeting that Thursday morning with office people. I don't know if that was every week or not, but I know that happened at one point in time.
Well, we still facilitate the staff meetings, or the training that I was talking about with V&M Recycling and stuff, and I usually attend these. It happens on Thursday mornings. Everything that Mr. Bear said, staffing-wise, so you typically have 2 attendants that will split a week's worth of work at every site, and that's helps facilitate those hours to keep everybody part-time. If we started going full-time, then you get into the whole benefits packages and stuff, and then increases the cost and go up.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Bowers?
Again, I would welcome anything y'all see project-wise that you think the county ought to take on. Send me an email or give me a call, pass it on to Mr. Bear. I appreciate it.
Thanks for everything you do, Billy.
Thank you, Billy.
E911, Miss Lane.
Morning.
Hello.
I'll try to make this quick. We have, as a total, we had about 71,000 calls, either incoming or outgoing, into the 911 center over the last 12 months. As far as 911 calls, there were just over 19,000. The non-emergency calls that came in that end up dispatching units to either transfer in from the state police or transfer in from another county. We had about 26,471 calls come in. Our outgoing calls were about 25,000. That's usually things that come in that we have to transfer out of the county to the state, down to the sheriff's office, or just simple admin calls that need to go to different agencies. So that takes our total to about 71,000 calls. It's about 195 calls a day. Right now, we're working with, we've got 2 people on each shift with a third during our really busy hours. It's still very busy, it's still very tight, but we're managing through. We had a couple of systems that we're getting ready to go live with. We just finished some testing for text to 911. We will be going live with that tomorrow. We haven't announced that yet to the public. We're getting with Blaine County and Twin County. We're going to try and announce that together. We're working with Mr. Farley to put out a service announcement to let everybody know. But we've done the testing. Everything's good to go, and we're meeting the state requirements to go ahead and go live tomorrow. We're also have been putting in a new mapping system so that we can get a new system updated. Ours is no longer supported or will not be supported in the near future. So we've got that undertaking as well. To get to the radios, we've done a lot with our radios. We're looking right now, moving ahead for this year, we're looking at phase 2 for the sheriff's office. So far, everything is looking good, but we're still finding some really dead spots down in Ivanhoe, and then a couple out. There's some spots out in Speedville that we need to raise up as well. So we're going to do a phase 2, and then reprogram those radios again once those 2 towers come online. We also have recently been testing at the fire departments and rescue squads for their channels and their part of the system. Everything has gone well so far. It looks like we're going to be able to do the same move that we did with the sheriff's office. I just met with our tower climbers this morning and went over the materials list so they can get up on Hamilton's Knob and get all that stuff taken care of and get us online up there. We currently have connection with Hamilton's Knob, but we want to get all the way up the tower. So this is going to be the permanent climb to make sure that we're all set up there. And that'll bring everybody up digital. Over the next year, we're also looking at improving the tower location in Speedwell, either boosting that tower up another 40 to 60 feet or moving it up higher in elevation and then putting in a new tower. That can get a little expensive, but our budget has been really tight, and we are holding on to every penny, making sure that we spend it correctly. We've got about $174,000 a year for the last 3 years for this project. When we first started out, we were advised by a couple of radio techs that it was going to be a full-time position that we would need. We would have to hire in people, and it was going to still take 2 or 3 years to do. But we've been able to do it between myself and Mr. Bear and Curtis and Jason Busick that was here before, with the help of the sheriff's office, with their support. And I'm really hopeful that we're actually going to come in under budget. And I'm so proud of that fact, but it's taken a lot longer because I have to learn as I go. But we're on schedule, we're on budget, we're actually below budget, so I'm very proud of that fact. The Wythe County Sheriff's Office, I was just talking to Major Klein last week, and we're gonna look at doing the 1033 program again and getting shipping containers to use for buildings. Normally, our buildings would run anywhere between $10,000 to $25,000 to put on a site. And we're getting those are used buildings that usually leak, or there's something wrong with it, or it's outdated. And we usually get those from CenturyLink. That's what the normal is. But with the help of the sheriff's office, we can get those Connex boxes for whatever it costs to go pick it up. Because the Connex box is actually free. We just have to pay for the gas to go get it, and that's it. So with the help of the sheriff's office, and I want to thank you all, we've been able to save on our budget anywhere between $20,000 to $50,000 just in buildings. So that's been an awesome help. As far as our location on Pine Ridge, which is our main location to spread out to the rest of the towers, that tower is, it's got guidelines on it, or guide wires. It's overloaded as it is. We're looking at possibly placing our antennas up or on the DSS building. And we're going to present a proposal with that here shortly, and probably in the next couple weeks. I have to get some pricing on that. But we're hoping to move everything off of that so that we can shoot straight to our other towers and come off of Pine Ridge. That's going to help out the county and the town, because the town has to, if we don't come off that tower, they're going to have to build a new tower on that site. That the guide wire tower just doesn't hold the equipment. And they're asking us to help, and just to save us money, it's better if we go over on our own building, on our own site. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. But that's about it, short and sweet. Do y'all have any questions about anything that I can answer?
I don't.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I would make a comment, and obviously I talked to all partners there since then, but I do want to comment, because Darlene talked about all this on the radio systems and all that, and tremendous amount of work. And I mean, the cost estimates we had were well over $1 million.
Well over.
Thanks for what we were doing, and we're definitely coming back. But Darlene does that on top of being the head dispatcher, but as being the head dispatcher, I can't tell you the number of times that I get the message in the morning that says, I'm not going to be here today because somebody called in sick last night and I ended up having to work a night shift. She does a tremendous job of scheduling and arranging our employees, but she steps in and fills any void to make certain that those guys in the back have somebody in the dispatch center there at all times helping out. And I want to say how much I appreciate all your time and hours that you spend doing that. And because of that, that's the running joke down there. If I call and ask if Darlene is there, they always tell me she left at 5. I appreciate her time and effort.
Thank you.
So do those 3 that are in training, does that bring you up to full staff then?
I'm sorry?
You've got 3 people still on training?
I have 2 people in training right now. One is full and one is part-time.
Okay.
And that brings us up to the current staff that we're allowed to have, yes. But I'm looking for 2 more.
Thank you, Darlene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Finance Department, Mr. Grant.
Good morning.
Morning.
Y'all like the budget? Worked hard. Maybe not.
We really don't want to talk about numbers.
I appreciate it. It was a lot of work. We're continuing on right now to close the year and open the new year. This has been a very unique year for finance department. We started off last July, getting ready to go live on UB on August 15th. And about August 1st or 2nd, that plan went away with David. The project got set into rest, and for the next several months, I assisted with the Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer in setting up their taxes to get things working out, which is not my bailiwick. David and I kind of split things up. I'll take the payroll, you take the revenues. So anyway, it was rather a difficult time. We had the audit to go through. So it wasn't a happy, fun year. We got through the audit, and you guys started that B-word budget, which we're ending today. I've had some staff turnover this month, last month, and we're kind of at a bare bones situation right now. But I appreciate you all's assistance going forward. As we begin the new year, we want to be able to have a full staff to be able to assist in the audit and get that better done and possibly even certified. Increase our knowledge base and documentation so that if somebody walks out the door, that knowledge is not lost. I'll say that with the Munis project, there were 3 people that really knew how that worked. That was David, myself, and Casey. And so we're kind of down to Bruce. Bruce is starting to forget why he went upstairs. That happens from time to time. Anyway, as we move forward with Munis, we have to bring forward the utility billing to get the water and wastewater on that. We're also, as we go forward, we're looking to do the Virginia State income tax, the animal licenses, general billing, parks and recreation, citizen self-service, permits and licensing, human resources, employee self-service, CAFR reporting. So where we are with Munis project is the utility billing is the last big package that we have to do. And we basically need to get that revived when our staffs are available for that, both on the IT and the finance side. And then the rest of them are smaller modules that we'll be able to fill in and grow out. So that's kind of what we've been doing and where we're going. We've got a monthly report for you all each month. Hope that it's helpful. If you have suggestions as to some things that could be in here, be glad to look at that. If there are things in here that you really don't want to see in there, let me know that also, and I can just stop doing them. Any questions, please?
Any questions for Mr. Grant?
Mr. Chairman, I would just point out, and I'm sure y'all had a chance to look at it, when you have an opportunity, do look at page 146, 147, 148 of the board package. The sales, I guess, starts about 146 with the sales and use tax, which remains strong, and Ms. Gwen spoke of. The meals tax that came in for the month of May is $39,000, and that compares to $65,000 last year. Just a brief review of that, that is the lowest month that we have had in the last 5 years. We don't know enough detail to know if any businesses were withholding the taxes and not paying, and this is the total amount is processed. We're going to, but then also the lodging taxes, I appreciate the support that you placed in here. The lodging taxes were down from 16,000 in May of last year to almost 4,000 this year. And once again, that's one of the lowest that it has been in the last 5 years for any month. So just items for us to continue to watch as we go forward this year.
Mr. Baird, or Mr. Grant, since we're having a day meeting, can we bring Ms. Woods in and meet her? Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. I'll ask, when you leave, would you bring Kelly Woods in to introduce her to the staff after
Be delighted.
Kurtz's presentation?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Anybody else have anything else for Mr. Grant?
I don't- I
Thank
don't
you,
think
sir.
so. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Emergency Services, Mr. Crawford.
Good morning. So this is, I'm sure everybody's going to say the same thing when they come up here. This last couple months have been the oddest, weirdest, most I don't want to say unprepared, but most challenging that we've had. So as of this morning, we do have 50 cases in Wythe County cumulative of COVID. That's a 2 more increase, or 3 more this week. And those are putting us at, I think, 9 active cases and 39 recoveries in the county. 4 have been hospitalized, and that's a cumulative number. And of course, we've had the 1 death. These numbers comparing to what's around us have been around average. Of course, south of us, they have 200s in their numbers. Around us, Smith County's at the 30s, and so is Pulaski. So we're running about average with those couple counties. I am working right now and have been for the last little bit with all the department heads on CARES money so that we can best spend that money, looking at different ways to do that, whether it be through IT and computers, Darlene and the dispatch center, getting them technology that helps with COVID, or with our departments, our emergency services departments. And hopefully after tonight, this evening, we'll be able to sit down and actually put forth a plan of how we're going to spend those funds. Flooding has also been, COVID's not the only thing going on. Flooding has been a big problem too. It's usually daily. We see something on Facebook about flooding in the areas of the county. I've been working with the National Weather Service on putting us some gauges in throughout the county. One of the first ones that we're going to look at is around the Kent's Lane area, so that we can quickly predict if water is heading towards Max Meadows to cut off that area. When water cuts off the Max Meadows area, it definitely delays our emergency response to the northern part of the county. because you either have to go back to Pepper's Ferry or around to Locust Hill if you can get that way. So that's one of the places that we're going to look about. I've been working with Johnny. We've been working with VDOT on cleaning up some ditch lines and seeing if we can find the actual reason that these floods are getting backed up. And hopefully we'll have some sort of a report about those floodings in the next little bit. We were just out last week looking at some places from the rains we had last week, especially right there at, last week the big affected place was at Apache Lane and Lavender. Twice last week it flooded that area pretty severely. So those are some places that we're looking at. Other than that, we've got the EOP, of course. It's being distributed as we speak. It should go online this week, the new EOP that you guys approved, so that it's available to the entire county. Other than that, we've been working with emergency services. We do have a new captain as of last week at Lead Mines Rescue Squad. I also have a new director of the board down there, and I think an email went out to you guys about that. I hope to have him in here maybe the next meeting to introduce him so that he's familiar to you guys. Also, when we talk about COVID, we do have a few isolated incidents of exposures to some of our departments with COVID, but they are isolated and no concern that that's going to spread out at this time. So with that being said, I'll open up to any questions.
I'll add one comment. The Speeble flooding, several of the houses in Speeble proper down there are within the floodplain, have been within the floodplain for a very long time. One of the options that Curtis and Johnny are working on is VDM relocation assistance funding. Now, the owners may not be interested in it, but that was used by the county in about 2000 on Route 11 in Rural Retreat to remove one of the houses there in that bottom that was always having the basements flooded. And basically, VDM comes in and provides money and buys out the property, and then they can relocate. It is a grant process, and it doesn't open until March of next year. So they're pulling that application together, share that with the residents down there, and let them know that is an option. But with them being in the floodplain, that's probably about the only option that's going to be available for them.
And we're putting together, with that report, we're putting together an amendment to the Mount Rogers Hazardous Mitigation Plan. That's our first steps for that granting process, is that we have to, as the county, say that Speedwell and some areas of Max Meadows and some areas of Ivanhoe are prone to flooding. It's not in that plan yet, but it will be as we do the amendment that opens us up to getting further grant money if it's possible.
So speaking of the Max Meadows flooding right there at the transfer station, excuse me, is there any talks about raising that road and putting drainage under it? Because really what happens is the creek's coming down and gets over into that pasture land and it goes across the road because it's below the floodplain.
Right. And so the VDOT part of it, so we met with, last week we met with, on the day that it flooded so bad, we met with VDOT for Connors Valley, and they gave us their plan on how they were going to redo the 3 major spots in it. So at that moment, we mentioned to the VDOT guy what we would like, some other places in the county that are having issues like that. So we're hoping to hear back. And Johnny's heading up the VDOT conversations more than I'm heading those up. I'm heading up to speak with VDM and the other departments. So, but hopefully all that'll be in with the what we're putting together, I guess.
Yeah, so Connors Valley is important as well. I know Mr. Ennis is here. So we don't want to lose sight of that, but I was just thinking right there at Max Meadows as you cross the bridge, that's a low point.
Right.
It's been prone to flooding for the 50 years I've been on this area. So.
Right, and the major thing that we found with that is that there is a large root tree system that is sitting on one side of that that could be backing that up. Also, Miller's Creek coming in, when Miller's Creek hits Reed Creek, it's at a reverse angle. So it's actually maybe slowing that down. And with the way that the river winds, it does slow it down a lot for that flooding. So we're trying to throw out some ideas of how we're going to get that fixed, but, you know, it would help us out if VDOT could move that bridge just a little bit, or open up some more movement, but I don't think that's the end all to answer everything, so.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else have any, excuse me, anybody else have any more questions for Mr. Crawford?
I know we have on the agenda for the pool filling proposal, but can we discuss that now, or can you kind of stick around for when we do?
Certainly can, that would be fine.
I just kind of wanted your opinion on, you know, implementing some type of policy, because I know we had issues in the past before both of our times, but
So
I've got so many questions on it.
Right, and if you look at it at, you know, the 50-foot, I'm looking down at it, most counties around here have banned that, and it comes down to a liability. So if we have a department out filling a pool, if they damage that pool, then who's the liable party? It's our trucks, it's the department using them, there's a gray area, it would be probably on both parties. So that would be the first thing that I have, but I also understand where Chief Stitt and Barron Springs are coming from. With funds being down right now from COVID, I mean, this is just, they're looking at it as another revenue source. I mean, to me, if we wanted to go this route, it would have to be something that we monitored, we controlled, and we did the paperwork on, and then the departments, they did the work, but we controlled the other aspects of it, so that we have a uniform system throughout the county. That would be my opinion.
Okay.
We had problems a couple years ago with a fire department was in surrounding localities filling pools. We also had the problem with technically, when you're pulling out a fire hydrant, really should be paying for the water that is getting pulled out of the fire hydrant in the process. And it needs to be at fire hydrants that are most advantageous, that create the possibility of the least water hammer or the least damage to lines if water hammer would happen. It is a fundraiser. It's good for them to do a fundraiser, but at the same time, it's county equipment and county liability that are out there with it. You know, it's not the same thing, but it's sort of like the schools do not rent their school buses out for other organizations to use the school buses for private things that, you know, the private sector should be providing it. If we were to do it, if it's something that the board really wants to do, then I think you've got to establish a policy that the individuals that wants to have their pool filled would come up here, would sign paperwork waiving all liability of it, would say they're getting 2,000 gallons of water, would pay for the $10.40 or whatever it is per 1,000 gallons for the water, would pay a mileage rate or a fuel rate or a charge for that, and then a fee on top of that, that is the donation to the fire department. And they give them a receipt, and they take the receipt down to whichever fire department it is that's doing it and do all that. Now, that's a tremendous amount of work, but that's the only way that I can feel that we are at least recouping the county's fuel expense, the county's wear and tear on vehicles, and the purchase of the water, and then providing a donation to the fire department.
Is it just Barron Springs that is interested in doing it, or?
Well, Ivanhoe was doing it years ago, and they were the ones that were advertising on Facebook, Pulaski and Carroll, and filling in a lot of pools outside of places, and there was no financial control. You didn't, you know, for any of the departments, you weren't knowing how much they were charging or how much donation they were getting. Was it paying for expenses, all of that?
Well, and I guess one of my concerns is if Barron Springs does it, but Max Meadows doesn't want to do it, and they're in Miller's Creek filling up a swimming pool and they get a fire call in their area, you know, I think it needs to be it's one of these things that I personally think with everything going on and everybody going out and buying pools this year, you know, we're not opening the pool at Retreat Lake. You know, the town's not going to open their pool. It's something that I wouldn't mind looking into for this year just to help people out. But I think it needs to be, I mean, every department needs to participate. And I don't know if the interest is there with their department. I mean,
I'm not 100% about Max Meadows. The other question will be is if somebody lives in the town, is the town going to be on board? Or if Rural Retreat as well, because that's a whole two different water systems too, if they're pulling from town water or Rural Retreat.
well, I mean, if you live in town, you know, I live in a Retreat, I can stick a hose in my pool and it's gonna fill up. Now, I'm gonna have to pay for it, you know.
But you're gonna pay for it anyway.
Well, you're gonna
Fire
pay for
trucks
it
do it.
anyway, but what I'm looking at is the people that are out here on well water.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
And, you know, that's,
Right.
you know, to me, it's more of you know, if you live in town, it would be a convenience thing. You know, I'm thinking about the people that live out in the county that, you know, have well water and they don't want to run their well dry or whatever, but, you know.
all right, because I believe the town of Withville also gives a discount on the water bill if you fill it up with town water. Because I've done that in the past, or maybe they waive the sewer fee or.
They probably do like us. They waive the sewer fee on a pool field, more than likely.
So,
It may be something that needs to go to the Fire and Rescue Committee and let them discuss it.
yeah, let's put that on our
You wanna,
next agenda.
you want us to put together a draft policy?
Yeah, something, because this also can't take all summer to make a decision on.
That's what I was gonna say.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
this-
we meet, well, we don't meet
The
for,
third.
How about we just draw up the policy and bring back at the next board meeting?
okay,
Let
let's
you
do
all
that.
look at it, and then y'all can decide if y'all want to send that to FNR or take action on it then.
Okay, sounds great.
And
Thank
will you
you.
try to, Curtis, will you try to reach out to the other departments and just see, you know, if they're all in favor of doing this or kind of see, gauge the interest?
Yeah, I sure will.
Thank you, Curtis.
You're very welcome.
Well, I think Ivanhoe would because they used to, and I'm pretty sure Speedwell would.
Yeah, I think I've heard interest from those three departments. It's the other two, I don't think they're against it, but I think they haven't given full positive for it.
Well, I think Retreat stopped because of the liability and.
That's
you
what I was
know,
gonna say. I think they used to do it, didn't they?
Yeah, but I think they stopped because of the liability, you know, and that's something if, you know, of course, there again, their trucks are not in the county's name, they're in the town's name.
Correct.
There's that, you know.
Well, and where they're filling up from, so we'd have to talk with Town of Rural Retreat. If they're filling up in the town and doing, that they may do it their own way, so.
I know the chief at Burns Springs told me that he's way down on donation this year, and he thought maybe hauling that water would help them make up the slack for that.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything for Mr. Crawford? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Curtis.
Mr. Chairman, I would request we allow an introduction here and allow Ms. Kelly Woods to make her 15-minute presentation that she has prepared. And then we need to call Dr. Shelton after that.
If you'll give your jump drive to Martha, sure.
No, it's glad to have with us on board Kelly Woods. She has spent a lot of years in Smith County, and she has been an asset immediately for us with the knowledge that she's come on board with. Our system is different than their system. I'll pick and say their system was different checkbooks stacked in a drawer that she paid out of.
Yes.
And so she's adapted to it with the Tyler Munis system, but I'll let you introduce yourself, but we're very glad to have her on board.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Woods, and as Stephen said, I am from Smith County. I spent 6.5 years there. doing their accounts payable. I did a lot with the budget, and I actually handled the board agendas, transcribed their minutes, kept them in tune with all their classes and all that good stuff. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
I'd seen you around up here on the hill.
Yeah,
And,
making my rounds.
of course, coming from Smith County, I don't guess I should call this a hill.
Well, we know
Y'all's
what year.
office actually was on
Yeah.
the
Yes, it
hill.
was.
So,
Yeah, and sometimes I felt like I belonged on the hill.
Well,
so,
it's,
you know.
well, welcome and
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce, see if Martha's out there.
Surely I do somewhere. Pull it out and half a dozen of them falls out.
Good morning, Dr. Shelton here.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you hear us?
Yes, how are you today?
We are fine. The Board of Supervisors appreciate you taking time to speak with us this morning, and they have been given your handout, and I'll let you proceed with your comments, and then if you'll take a few questions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for having me this morning. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. This call thing, the wave of the future, but we'll do what we can with it. I just put together a few notes, a little bit of a synopsis about how we have seen the COVID pandemic unfold within the Mount Rogers Health District, and then some specific things for Witt County. As you know, as a district, well, Southwest Virginia has generally been a little less hard hit than the rest of the state, particularly in the more urban areas of Northern Virginia and some of the larger cities. Nonetheless, we have had our share in Southwest Virginia, and especially as it's affected the Twin County community of Galax and the greater community with Grayson and Carroll, and also spreading up into Witt as a result of some of those things. I put down some of the general trends that we have seen in our district as far as, early on it was mainly due to travelers, and then we've had a little community spread and kind of got into some of our healthcare workers, and then kind of back into the community. We have had various industries and businesses affected by the virus. Thankfully, most people have fared fairly well. Those who have been the hardest hit have been the elderly. We have worked extensively with the local government as well as law enforcement regarding any situations they've had, and also education. We have worked with local businesses who have had positives within their business, as well as those who have reached out for more education for their business regarding safety protocols within their businesses, how they can do things smarter and safer, and what to do with their employees for safety. We have worked extensively with all the nursing homes throughout the district, and including Witt County, regarding education on best practices. We've been helping provide PPE where needed. This virus has taken a toll on our country, but especially in our nursing homes have been the very hardest hit with this. We know that most people who are young and healthy seem to do well. Some have no symptoms whatsoever. Some will actually have a minor illness, such as just allergy-type symptoms or sinus-type symptoms. Others will go on to have a harder course with respiratory symptoms, muscle aches, chills, fevers, and some have had needed to be hospitalized. We have had a few deaths. Most of those have been in those over age 70, and a large majority have been throughout the district in nursing homes. As far as Witt County is concerned, we are doing through partnership, and we're very thankful with the National Guard. They're doing baseline studies in our nursing homes throughout the district. We recently had one at the Carrington Place in Whitsville with all negative results for staff and employees. We're very thankful. In Rural Retreat, there were 2 residents that were positive, and we're working with them on further investigation there, but they are doing very well with all their practices. You know, we expect this will get into nursing homes. It's one of the things when you have enough cases in your community, people have it. But they do have best practices in place, and we're working with them very closely to make sure that these things are managed. I tell you these specific institutions because this is now public knowledge. It is on the VDH website regarding any long-term care facilities who have had previous outbreaks or current outbreaks, and you can find that on the website. We are working with every case that we get that is positive. We do our case investigation. We give them instructions on isolation to stay at home until their contagious time is ended. We talk with them about people who may have been exposed. Those are considered the contacts. And then we do contact each one of these people as well to go over their quarantine. This is the time when they need to stay at home to stop spreading the disease. We have daily communication with both cases and contacts. For the contacts, we see if they start to develop any symptoms. We have them get tested as well. But the goal is to slow the spread of this disease. We know as this disease has affected our whole world that we cannot stop it at this time, but we have slowed it to the point where we can manage those who get sick. And so the idea by, this whole case investigation and containment of the disease is we have bought time. They have come up with better ways to treat those who are ill, an antiviral medication, the remdesivir. We've also, there's serious work going on regarding vaccinations globally, so we're getting closer to vaccines. We have worked with all of our healthcare providers, both in private offices and in the hospitals and in our long-term care facilities regarding best practices. And we've been able to get a better stream of the protective equipment. You always hear about the PPE, being able to get that up and going. So we have bought the time to really get the strategies that we need in place to manage things more effectively. We've been able to increase testing throughout the district as well as the state. So, by slowing the progression of disease, we've been able to have more and better management of the disease. And the goal really is to decrease the morbidity and mortality as much as possible, and to prevent as many people as possible from getting the disease until we can hopefully get that vaccine up and going. So that's kind of a brief synopsis. I know it's a lot of information. I gave you some specific details on the handout. I'm happy to go over those or answer any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Shelton?
I don't think so. No, I don't have any.
Dr. Shelton, it's Corey McRoberts. My understanding that you haven't one of your employees returned today who's been over there for many years, and I wish you'd extend my congratulations to her for all the services she's given us, Ms. Rhoda Thomas. And
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your comment.
Yes, ma'am, Rhoda Thomas.
Dr. Shelton, I don't know if you heard it. Mr. Supervisor McRoberts expressed his appreciation for Rosa Thomas, who is retiring today over at the Whitfield Health Department.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sorry I couldn't hear you very well. Yes, we're very sad that Rhoda has had many wonderful years of service with us, and we're very sad that she's retiring. She's probably picked a pretty good time, to be honest, but no, we're very sad that she is retiring, but very thankful for her and all her accomplishments over the years. So thank you for that. I appreciate your recognition of her, and I will make sure to pass that congratulations and your thankfulness for her service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything else for Dr. Shelton? That's all, Dr. Shelton. Thank you.
That's it? That's all the questions you have for me?
That's it.
Okay, well, I know we've been communicating with you as you needed, and please, if you have any other questions or concerns, we'll be happy to answer them for you. We stay in close contact with Mr. Bear, of course, and then, of course, with the emergency coordinator to make sure, you know, if there's anything going on specifically within the county, we're up to date on everything there. And we do appreciate Curtis, Mr. Crawford, very much and all the communication there. So please let us know if there's anything else we can do to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, going back to our staff reports, Animal Control, Mr. Dunford.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm just going to give you some numbers here for the yearly report, and then if you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. On the dogs picked up, we were 163. We had 103 brought in by the public to the shelter. We received 60 from the town of Whitfield, 29 from Bland County. We only had 10 that was euthanized, and that was probably, I'm going to say, our bite case dogs, through courts and stuff on those. We transferred 230 to our local rescues, so that was a pretty good number there too. We had total 2,380 total calls, and 1,137 of those were dispatched calls. Those numbers come from our call log and from Central Dispatch. We adopted out 38, and we had 79 that was returned to their owners. Other than that, that was the highlights I had on the report. If you got any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Dunford? One thing, Arlen, on around the recycle centers, can you start sitting around, and I know this is a loaded question because I know what y'all's call volume is from day to day, but when you have time and just randomly start picking these and spend 20, 30 minutes, and these people who have trash blow off the back of their truck, stop them and advise them that, you know, it's illegal. You know, I went to a retreat the other day, and there's a 52-inch flat screen TV box and all the styrofoam that accompanied that on the side of that Now, every time I've bought a TV in the past 20 years, when I hauled that box off, I knew it was in the truck. And I would have noticed if that large piece of cardboard was not in the truck when I got there. It's, you know, I don't want to say that it's lawlessness or laziness, but, you know, especially after what Mr. Bear said, you know, the trash pickup inmates, you know, they can spend all day picking up around these, you know, convenience centers, but just in your travels,
Yeah, I'll do that.
and I don't know, Wesley, Apple House and of course retreats are the ones I see most, and they seem to be the worst. I don't know if any of the other.
Max Meadows and Fort Chisholm. Yeah, they've had several. Of course, a lot of people will pull up and dump it out when they're closed and use it at gate. But yeah, I'll patrol that.
Yeah, there's a lot on Kent's Lane as well, Arlen,
Okay.
where they're coming to the collection
trucks.
center there.
Yeah, okay.
So, well, in the truck, so
Yeah.
that was another question I had for you. Just in your daily travel, if you're out that way, just kind of make a effort to come through there. I know we talked about it earlier, but we still have drivers that leaves and cleans their trailers out. so.
Okay.
As you enjoy that new truck, and before everybody knows it's you, might be a good time to get some use out of it. But I guess this is might be the first year that Animal Control has 2 vehicles that don't have 150,000 miles on it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, you definitely get the life out of one, and some. But that's all I have. I appreciate everything you do, especially, you know, looking at the numbers, the amount of animals or dogs that y'all were able to place with rescues, just, you know, compared to, what, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, they put us euthanizing rate probably 1%, even that's probably lower. Now, of course, those numbers will change too tomorrow, because I'll have to add more.
I'd like to comment, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the board support.
And moving along, Mr. Bear got his comment. He ain't figured out I've got a button over here that does.
The adding the third person has been a tremendous asset, and Ms. Dolly has been an asset for the organization, and her degree of follow-up with the citizens is to be commended. So
Yeah,
appreciate y'all adding.
A lot of good feedback on her and how she deals with problems and citizens, and, you know, we certainly express our thanks to her. So
Appreciate that. And she'll get better too when she actually gets to go through the basic animal part. Don't know when that'll be.
Whenever that happens. Anybody have anything else for Arlen?
No. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Arlen. The department formerly known as Parks and Recreation.
What department am I in charge of now?
Purgatory.
That's practically what my report says. It's all a waiting game right now. As far as like the sports and youth, all that, if y'all haven't heard, VHSL is delayed again until Virginia school systems figure out what they're going to do, and we're going to follow up and follow their lead basically on any kind of sports. So I mean,
and I read a very interesting article, and not to interrupt you, but talking about VHSL waiting on the school system. People need to realize that each local school board has been given the authority to open school as they see fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what VHSL is going to do.
Well, either way, I'm waiting on the school board to decide.
But, you know, VHSL is trying to make a decision for the state, but yet it's not a state decision, it's an individual school district decision. So I'm not sure.
Well, either way, we're not going to do anything more or less than what the high schools are doing around here. Been talking with town of Wytheville, and we're all on the same page about how we're going to do that, and more than likely, no matter which season, which sport we end up going into this fall, we'll provide something for the kids somehow. And I'm meeting with our booster clubs and the town of Wytheville tonight for a meeting to just say we're all in this together. Let's plan as best as we can and keep on our toes as we go. But I do have to say that whenever everything shut down, Chip, our sports coordinator, has been up and running and cleaning out stuff that's been neglected for the past 15, 20 years. And we're cleaning out storage units that we've never had time to sit down and actually do. Getting rid of equipment that isn't needed, and making things a little bit more organized so we can actually find them when we go to find them when sports starts back. And he's more than willing to help out with anything out at the campground and doing a little bit of extra work out there. And I don't have exact numbers or anything for campground because we just opened up on the 12th, but I know that we've had full weekends every weekend. Of course, with 4th of July this weekend, we've got a waiting list, but we about had a waiting list this past weekend, which I think that's going to be the gist of our camping season this year, is that it's going to be full until we close, which is a rarity, but there's really nothing else going on that people can go out and enjoy. But they're enjoying our facilities, and one big thing that I do have to comment on is our manager out there. It's her third year being a full-time seasonal manager, and she's picked up and has run with it this year and been really well with that. As far as the pool goes, I'm going to take off the cover next week because I thought that with all the people that were there this weekend, wouldn't be good if they saw an open pool and be able to jump the fence again like they normally do, and we don't have any people monitoring it. But I'm going to open it up or take the cover off so I can at least circulate it some, so that next year when we do open again, I won't have 5 inches of algae built up and have that much more labor to go into it, because it is a labor-intensive thing. But yeah, that's about where we're at. Any questions?
I will say, Saturday I went out to the lake, and it probably the first time in 25 years I went fishing out there, because everybody's bored staying at home. But I rode through the campground. I was surprised at how many sites we rented, and just thank your staff. It was very clean out there. I mean, even around the lake. I mean, you could tell they'd been picking up trash and all that. I did have one question, and I was going to ask Mr. Bear. I'll ask while you're up here. When I was out there, the ice cream truck went through the campground. Do they sell ice cream at the shop?
I haven't ordered any this year yet, but we do.
And do they have a permit, or?
This is the Happy Days, yes, they
Yeah.
do.
They have their peddler's license. We catch them all the time.
I always would be up there running and would see them come through, and
get
it
an ice
infuriated me. And they learned to start coming and getting their peddler's license. But I've often said that's private property once they get back in there, and they need to be working with our Parks and Rec department, because one time they were going through there about 10 o'clock at night, and I just don't think anybody needs to be listening to that stupid song at 10 o'clock at night as an ice cream truck runs through there. So honestly, at 10 o'clock at night, we typically don't have a manager out there anymore, so it's hard to control. But we make certain they are getting the license to be.
And I don't, I don't have a problem with them.
Yeah.
Being out there, I know it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's a business from another county, and I want to make sure they weren't taking any revenue from.
Not at this moment.
Yeah.
Did they not stop for you?
Huh? We rode through the campground, and I got behind them.
He couldn't run
and
fast enough to catch the truck.
They stopped, and there's like 6 people run out, and I'm sitting there waiting on them to make their purchase. And I look at my wife, and I go, I wonder if they've got a permit.
Yeah. It still surprises me. I mean, friends that come in with my children being real retreat, and they are absolutely amazed that there's still an ice cream truck, and that's a joy. I mean, these 18, 19, 20-year-old kids want to go out and buy an ice cream off the ice cream truck when it comes to it. I haven't seen it much in Real Retreat this year.
That's the first time, when you talk about playing noise, you're sitting there enjoying the peace and quiet and fishing, and you hear the jingle. But
did it make the fish bite?
No.
No.
But,
I thought if it did, that's going to be something I was going to try.
I kind of remember why I didn't fish for 25 years. But it was a nice day, and there was several people out there. And like I said, got out of the house, and it was. I'll probably go back just to have something to do. Except for the $2 and how many ever cents it cost me for the night crawlers at the office there. It was fairly cheap. So
that was last Saturday?
Yeah.
Now I know why the 2 DGF guys I ran into while I was running around there, who they were looking for. On our sports season, and I'll say this, I've been talking to Kevin. I told him to talk to the town about it. Obviously, VSL is up in the air, but I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but I think it is going to be very difficult for us to have a fall football season if you're supposed to be only having a certain number of kids so far apart on a bus, or a certain number of kids so far apart in a school, or going on staggered days. And then we've got practices 3 days an afternoon with 20 kids on top of 20 kids for an hour's worth of practice. You know, it may mean that we look at spring football. Now, I've been reading that even VHSL may be looking at spring football. Who knows what they may be looking at. You know, baseball, you have a little bit more distance. If you can keep them separated in the dugouts more, whatever. Maybe we can do some other type of sports in the fall if football is not an option. But we want to try to be creative and see if there's anything we can come up with for these kids to do. But I know it's blasphemy to not talk about playing football in the fall. But it's going to be a difficult fall sports season for us.
Schools don't get a chance to play football, they won't have the money to pay the officials for the rest of the sports. I mean, it's that simple. If you don't have football income, you can't pay for the officials, because the other sports sometimes don't even have enough people in attendance to pay the officials that are there.
Anybody else have anything else for Mr. Williams?
See you.
Keep doing your projects, I guess.
Oh, there's plenty of stuff. Trust me, with the campground, there's plenty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Engineering, Mr. Johnny Cancer.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are y'all doing? Just briefly, of course, the Apex continues. There's some ideas for some of the drainage issues down there. We may be able to convert some of the manholes that are stormwater manholes into drop inlets. Apex Barn, I'm still trying to study a little bit of the liquidated damages part. Stephen's explained a lot to me, but Stephen's got a lot more lawyer brain than I have. Ricky Road, we're trying to satisfy rural development right now, so we're sending all the documentations in. Transfer station, it's basically complete, but we got to create a punch list. I'm not sure if Tim's satisfied yet or not, but I haven't heard from him, so I think he is.
Just to fill you all in, because the JPSA authority is very familiar with it. The transfer station, which is operated by the JPSA, is roughly 25 years old, and the dumping bay itself has a lot of repair that need to be done, and there was a lot of I guess add-ons that were added to the building to help with directing the trash into the trailers that I guess I will say were not engineered properly, and were put on existing steel frame of the building and started to basically bend out the steel on the side of the building. So this firm has come in, reconstructed the dump bays, the tipping area. It's $200 and some thousand project that they have been working on. And it's just, the transfer station needs to have a little bit of love and tender care to improve 25 years of age that are on it. So that's the project that Johnny's talking about there, and they're, like I said, finishing that up.
Yep. Of course, the term engineering contract, I think Donnie's probably going to expand on that a little bit. We've been working on that together. Comprehensive water and wastewater studies, same thing. Let's see. Of course, we've been working together on all the flood stuff, the smart scale thing. It's kind of a fiasco, but they're working out some of the issues. I thought their deadline was a couple weeks ago, and it's actually August, and their software is still not working, as far as I know. So we're having some issues with that.
And our primary smart scale project this year, Mount Rogers PDC will be putting in a truck climbing lane project on a regional basis. Ours is improving the turn lane on Apache Run 52 down there, sort of where we're talking about some of the flooding issues down there, to try to make that a T intersection in front of Food Country instead of a Y intersection right there. So we will be asking for a resolution of support to go in with the application by September 1st, October 1st, one or the other.
That's about all I have. You guys have any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Cantor? I did have one, I don't remember if it was on your report. I think it was on the Apex, the punch list with RGM, and it was on there that RGM wanted to get, I guess, their final drawdown on their contract. Can we get that punch list? I mean, we want to be done with it as much as they want to be done with it. Can you get that punch list and get a time frame and say, let's get this done, and we'll give you your final check? And
Sure. They're down to basically two items, but they've taken care of most of the stormwater management. They came in and put it in. They got a couple locks to replace, and then I think they finished with the heaters. May have a little bit left on the heaters, and that's it. We are still going to need to hold some funds until we get DEQ to fully release the site for stormwater management. That's the only thing that would be left, and we'll have to work with them. They may have some bonding issues to get it released, but we're real close on that.
A lot of that's on me. I'm still working with DEQ, trying to get all the comments satisfied. Biobasin, which is the little pond at the end of the building there, they kept asking for, see if it was sized correctly, and I was thinking hydrology, hydraulics, and so I kept giving them those calculations, but there's a different set of specifications that I'm not sure what it's based on, but it sizes the surface area for you. So it was a little bit smaller than it needed to be with the added drainage from the drop inlet we put in the parking lot. So we've expanded that, but we just got to get it stabilized, and then hopefully we can get DEQ to sign off on everything so we can continue with the parking lots and everything else.
all right, thank you. Anybody else have anything else for Mr. Cantor? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
IT Department, Mr. Todd Catcher.
We've got a few things going on in IT now. We've just got some projects off the ground. One is a big one, it's been a long time coming, the phone upgrade for the judicial buildings down there, the sheriff's office, Commonwealth Attorney, the courts, Treasurer, Commissioner of Revenue, Registrar. That system, about 20 years old. It's been a great system, still is a good system, sort of. And we're going to replace it with a Fortinet FortiVoice system that'll give us all the features that we need, much easier to work with. That's ongoing right now. Where we've got a computer inventory, we've got a decent idea of what's going on, but we don't have everything that we've got on the inventory. We want to get a handle on all our assets, what we have, what it's running. We're working on that. Use that information to plan for a computer upgrade. We're going to get our machines using hopefully CARES money to get us a good number of machines in here and get us off the ground, so we're not running older systems and technology. It'll get us closer to current industry standards, so we're not struggling with this application communicating with this one or something like that, because we'll have what we need. Got a few AV projects going on, audio-visual projects. Circuit court's wanting a display, a couple displays in the courtroom down there. We're working on that. We're working with Curtis to get the EOC upgraded to turn it into a video conferencing room and just give better control and usability in case of emergency situations. Video conferencing, I mean, we all just went through stay-at-home, quarantining, COVID-19. That's probably one of our better facilities for that. So it'll give us a place where we can get together, socially distant if we need to, and still communicate with folks. And non-project related things, this is just regular stuff, regular IT stuff, day-to-day stuff. Personally, me, still learning new systems, learning the new environment, see how things going and how things are working, and trying my best. One of the things I like to do, and I'm trying to do it here, is empower the users to do their jobs the way they want to do it, to way, help them to do their jobs better. So that's the extent of what I have for you guys. Any questions?
On the phone system, you said it's been in the works for a while. That'd be correct. So what's the time frame on it?
The gentleman that was here from MXN, that's the company that we've contracted with to bring it in, he said by the end of July. There's a lot of cabling that has to go on. I'm not as optimistic as he is. I'm thinking middle August. But, he's the expert. He said the end of July, so we'll see what happens. All I can tell you is it won't be near as long as it has been. Next couple months.
That whole project is
That's a good answer.
the true definition of moving at the speed of government.
Exactly, yeah. We, next couple months, we will have a brand-new phone system, full featured, voicemail to email. So, working voicemail. And then on top of that, the voicemail will be copied to a little sound clip and sent to you in email. So if you're not at your desk, but you get something important, you can still get your voicemail, doesn't matter.
Well, I don't know if that's a benefit or not for some people, but.
Always connected.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Catcher? I will say thank you, Todd, for, we had David's, recognized his retirement earlier, and thank you for coming in and what you've done in a difficult situation. And I know in the IT world, when you come in blind like that, sometimes you're, learning as you go, even though you're
Exactly.
an IT expert, it's different systems.
I've heard it described as trial by fire.
Yeah.
You get thrown in and you got to do what you do. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. David came upstairs afterward and we sat down and talked. That he's a good guy. I regret not having the opportunity to work with him. He's a good guy.
Definite wealth of knowledge that just left the building today. So, but thank you for what you and Miss Kegley do.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Todd, I think this belongs in your inventory. You loaned it to me back a long time ago, and I kept forgetting to get it back to you, and it's been laying here. Thank you, sir.
Building inspection, Mr. Taylor.
I saw him walk by the door a second ago, so.
Mr. McRoberts has got to be out here, so we. What time did you say you had to leave?
Robert,
I've got a retirement drive-through that started at 11:30 to 1, but
Robert Walt's mother passed away and they're having her service today at 2 o'clock.
Morning.
Sir.
Or afternoon, almost.
Now, before you get started, first we'll just ask you to introduce yourself to everyone again, and then we'll let, I told him that we were really throwing him to the wolves here. I said he hadn't been on the job hardly a month, and we're already having to make a presentation. So I'll let you go.
Okay. My name's Kyle Taylor. I'm the new building official. And thank you guys for this opportunity to serve this county and to serve the citizens of this county. So if there's anything you guys have questions about, I got a little bit of information as far as permit fees that we've collected, comparing from last year and this year. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Go ahead and share a little bit of information there.
Okay. So last year we pulled, there was 394 permits pulled, and the fees equated to $57,482. For this year that we're closing out, there was 378 permits pulled at $48,667. And then I also pulled a quarterly report from comparing last year into the one we're closing out. It was at 89 permits from April to June, and then I was at $13,363. And then from this April to present, we've had 103 permits at $13,700.
And Kyle, I've received the emails that I've got the initial off on. He's got several training classes already lined up. Basically, he's got a year to get certification. Now, they may extend that if they cannot have classes because of the COVID situation. But I think August or September, you start taking some of these classes.
Yes, sir. September 1st, I take my first class, and then September 22nd, I take the additional class. And I'm currently in the process. I'm finding out. I talked to Joel Cagle up in Bland, and he was saying that as far as his understanding is, I can actually go ahead and take my test as to become certified with the state before I even have to take those classes. So I'm still gathering information. So if I can go ahead and get that test over with, you know, and be certified, that would be great.
Does anybody have anything for you, Mr. Taylor?
Welcome.
Welcome.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Plan on,
We're good?
do a good job and plan on staying, because we really, we're past this hiring people thing.
Right. I understand. Well, I'll definitely do my best.
If you stay long enough, we'll give you a plaque and a watch.
Okay. I'll do my best.
His first week here was his best week because he came in on the week I was on vacation. So I said, that's a heck of a way to introduce somebody new. So, but he's been an asset learning on the job as he's gone. We appreciate having him.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
We don't have Mr. Crisp on the agenda, but I seen him walk in. So it's either he wants to speak and you left him off the agenda, or he's got bad news.
Yes and yes.
So,
Actually, when I was preparing the agenda last week, Mr. Crisp had prepared to be on vacation. So he was going to come and speak to you at the night meeting. Some of his plans have changed, so Mr. Crisp here, I'll let him, be glad to have him go ahead and speak to you.
Keep it brief. Do I need to spray this? Or?
can't imagine why you're not on vacation right now. It's,
Good question. Well, the reason, well, I won't get into it, but take a real vacation end of July. I'll try to keep it brief, since you guys have been here a while. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is. I guess we're not quite there. I'll just try to hit some of the highlights. I think Mr. Kinser hit on a few of the projects, but Atkins Mill, Olive Branch, Dunford Road, we've sent those questionnaires out. We're receiving some back. There was about 110 customers, potential customers in Atkins Mill, Dunford Road area, about 60 on Atkins Mill. We've gotten a little back from both, and we're seeing about 50-50 for or want the water, don't want the water. So we'll get those back, get them tallied up, and see what we actually have. Give it a few more weeks and see what we come up with. Fort Chiswell Pump Station Generator, that works was completed. I think Johnny may have touched on that. We received a pretty good grant for that, and we had a split cost with the town of Withfield. I think we ended up with around $19,000 out of pocket each, us and the town of Withfield. So the VDM grant was a great benefit. Ricky Road, waterline extension, we're a little behind on it. Stephen, I think we're getting the bond documents together. I think everything else is pretty much in order, so we should be getting started on it pretty soon, probably sometime in July. We're showing a pre-construction date of July 13th, notice to proceed of approximately July 20th. So we're probably on schedule there. We had a project budget of around $309,000. We had allocated funds of excuse me, $236,000. So we had around $72,000 remaining. We had some customers at the end of Ricky Road. Mr. Roberts had contacted us, and we had sent a survey out, and we had some interest. So The water committee has reviewed it, and we'll probably come back with a change order to extend that water line on out to serve those 5 customers out there. It was about a 1,300-foot extension in addition to what we were doing. So it seemed like the folks needed the water out there, so we'll bring that back to the board for approval. Smith with Interconnect PR, Pete Bortz, so it was actually working for us in Smith County. They're working on that PR. I'm not sure their status on it, but I think they're getting close to be completed with it. So once that's completed and we get a draft, we'll be looking at that, and once it's completed, bring it back to the board or the water committee and let them know what we found or what the conclusions were. Slabtown PER, that goes way back to a project. We were looking at doing some improvements in Slabtown Core. I think you remember we looked at doing a DHCD project, some road improvements and some water line improvements, and the financials just never did work out. That project's kind of just been on the shelf. Lane has went back, and we've kind of brought it up to date, and we'll get that back to the water committee to look at. Financially speaking, it just doesn't, it was to replace some water lines in Slabtown, but also in the Ivanhoe and the Route 94 area, and cost-wise, it's going to be difficult to do. So, but we'll bring that back to the water committee and the board and make them aware of what the conclusions are there. The comprehensive water and wastewater study is that project's been awarded to Pete Bortz, and that's underway. That's going to take some time to complete. Probably, I think we had a 270-day completion time on it, so about 9 months. So that's underway. Term services contracts have been signed. Didn't have signed contracts. We'd selected Pete Bortz, Hurt and Profit, and Thrasher Group. I think we have a couple of those doing some small projects. And I have a list of projects here for those term services engineers under item 7. I won't go into those in detail, but I will hit on the first one, the sanitary sewer evaluation study, which I think, Stephen, you brought that up previously, maybe in the board package. So that application's ready to go out, and if y'all are in approval, that's a good thing for us.
Explain that a little bit to them, Don. They've got, y'all have a copy of that in front of you?
Basically, what DEQ is, they're doing they call it a pilot program. And they're trying to get utilities in Southwest Virginia who are more often than not cash-strapped, I'll just put it that way, to take care of some of their environmental issues as far as sanitary sewer overflow. So a lot of the older systems, you have a heavy rainfall events, high groundwater, and you have sanitary sewer infiltration. So you have groundwater getting into the sanitary sewer either by coming in through underground due to high groundwater, or coming in through the tops, infiltration through manholes, cleanouts, things of that nature, roof drains. So what they're doing is they're introducing this pilot program, which allows us to receive through Virginia revolving clean water fund to receive a it's not really a grant, but it's a loan forgiveness type program. So you make application, and then they will forgive up to 75% of the total of that. The county would need to match 25% either out of pocket, or we can look for additional money if we need to as well. So what this will do is we've had Thrasher Group help put the application together. We'll send that into DEQ, and all indications are that they're really wanting to fund these studies, and so I think it'll get funded. And then what Thrasher will do is, when we sign an agreement with them, they'll go out and start doing the sanitary sewer evaluations. That takes some time because seasonally you have to wait till you have heavy rains. We're kind of getting into we should be getting the dry season, but it's been wet all year. But they'll do flow monitoring in the sanitary sewers. They'll do some smoke testing, find out where we have, leaks or exfiltration or infiltration coming in. And so they'll do an evaluation of different watershed areas where we're serving customers sanitary sewer. So it's a good program. We'll get that turned into them And if we get accepted, then we'll bring that back to the board and let you know we're accepted, and we'll just have to allocate the money, which actually I guess we already have, Stephen, for next fiscal year. So we're in good shape there. So that's kind of the project, the program in a nutshell. Just a couple of things, wastewater department, we had a couple of projects we completed this year. Hager Springs Pump Station, pump replacement, that project, it was completed. You know, we've got a couple of other pump station sites that we're gonna have to do similar projects. And the main reason for that is we've got pumps that have been in there for 20 years, and we maintain them, we pull them out and have them repaired as often as needed or have them inspected. These particular pumps, they go back 20-some years, so the problem is they're no longer servicing parts for some of the bottom end part of the pump. So we can't get them repaired to a certain extent. So once they are used up, basically we have to install a whole different pump system and rail system into the wet well. So this particular pump station, we were at that point. We have two more, one in Max Meadows and one on Chapman Road that we'll have to do a similar upgrades to. So we'll probably be looking at those next year sometime. The Austensville wastewater project. Madden Craig is working on the design for the improvements there to replace the sanitary sewer lines per the engineering report and per the agreements with our funding agency, and also the work at the wastewater plant. So that work's proceeding, and we're looking at probably August, September bid date to get that bid out. Chapman Road, we had a generator replacement we had to do there that was completed. The belt filter press, all that work's completed. It's back running, thankfully. Come in under budget. We ended up only having to replace 3 of the rollers, so that was a good thing. We had a couple of things that was unforeseen that we had to repair, but all in all, it came in around $43,000.
Tom, that's on the water committee. Explain a little bit about your belt filter press. What that is.
Okay, belt filter press is the sludge removal system for the plant. So in the wastewater process, you have solids that you have to remove from the facility. So those come out as a liquid solid, and you have to basically move those into more of a solid that we can take to a landfill. So what the press does, it's just kind of what it sounds like, a belt filter press. It's a really wide, probably 8-foot wide press, and does 2 meters. It's a 2-meter press. So basically you're just squeezing the water out, for lack of a better term. You run it through the press and it squeezes the water out. You get down to about a 20% solid, and then that goes into a container and it gets shipped off to the landfill. So that's basically what the press does. But you can't run the wastewater plant without the press, so you got to get the solids out. So, but it's back in service, running well, running better than ever. So it came in under budget. Urban Construction did an outstanding job. Earlier this year, we replaced the headwork screen. The headwork screen is where all the wastewater comes into the Fort Chiswell plant, the wastewater plant. You screen out plastic, solids, things you don't want to get into your process. So that was replaced earlier in the year. Been running fine and helping out the process quite a bit. So we're glad to get that completed. Just hit briefly on water department operations, maintenance. We made I guess we had 20 new water connections this year, just people coming in, signing up wanting water. So that's probably about normal, you know, I would say. Some new construction this year on as far as that, and probably most of those. 6 new sewer connections. Asset and facility maintenance, whole list of things we've been working on. I won't go into the details on all those. after-hours call-outs, you know, probably a little less than normal, about a dozen this year on average, which is pretty good. We've seen kind of a decrease in the number of water mains that's broke, which I hate to say that out loud, but knock on wood. I don't know why it is, but it is what it is, which is a good thing. A lot of work orders, office work orders created, field completed. These are just meter-related, customer-related. We had around 869 of those. Missed utility tickets, I didn't count them all up because there's about too many to count. We have probably several hundred of those a month that we have to respond to. So missed utility tickets are, if you're doing some excavation at your house, if you're not familiar with missed utility, you call and say, I've got to do some excavation. If we're on that grid, if our utilities are on that grid, we get contacted. And we have to respond to each and every one of them. So we get those, we have to pull them up, look at them, look on the map, and either go out and mark them or respond to them that you know, that's clear. You don't have to worry about it. So that's kind of a time-consuming thing. Customer water and wastewater counts, we have 3,157 active water counts, 674 sewer counts. Meter reading, going well. We are transitioning to some newer radio registers. The Hersey system that we use, which was originally, we put in 2008, I believe it was. The manufacturer is transitioning like everything. They transition to a new and improved product. So as they do that, some of our older radios and the registers are, they're still serviceable and they still are under warranty, some of them are. So we're still receiving warranty on those, and we'll be transitioning to a newer type meter. So, as far as the wastewater, pretty typical year, Fort Chiswell, you know, average flow is around 12 million a month. You know, we are seeing those peaks, and that's where the sanitary sewer evaluation comes in. It's important that we have that done because we're seeing these high storm flows. It's overwhelming the plant, and when the plant gets overwhelmed, then we have to run it directly through to the stream, which has only happened a couple times, but that's not something we want to do. And it also hurts us if we have a big customer coming into the industrial park. We can't be seeing these big peak flows if we have somebody comes in and wants to use another 200,000 or 300,000 gallons a day of wastewater. So that sanitary sewer evaluation will help us reserve capacity there at the treatment plant, which is critical for park development. So Poplar Camp, not much changing there. You know, we're seeing, you know, during the COVID thing, the flows are really down. And, you know, we don't see a lot of flow there, on average around 2,000 gallons a day anyway. So, you know, hopefully there'll be some commercial development at that interchange, which will help that wastewater plant and help us get some return on that investment. But right now, there's not much change there. And then Austensville's wastewater plant, about the same, but like I said, we're getting ready to do the system upgrades there, so we'll make some improvements to the wastewater plant. I did put a copy of our water purchases from New River Water Authority, and if you look at the end of that, January through June, you know, you see a significant decrease in March for the totals. Mostly on the Lots Gap meter, which feeds our interstate corridor. So that just basically indicates how much the traffic was off. It has since picked up. We're kind of evaluating the financial impact of that. We're getting into June, July now, so we can go back and look at the full fiscal year and see where we're at. So, but I think we're starting to see things pick back up pretty well. I think at the very end you have a copy of the financials through May, which is about where we expected to be, I think. We're showing, you know, on the water side, we're at a loss of $230,000, which I think that's about what we expected. So On the wastewater side, we're on a, a positive side, 126,000 through, this is through May. So, that's probably a little better than expected. So, we'll get through July and see what the end of the fiscal year numbers look like and what the impact of the, the 10% rate increase we had. That increase took effect, back in March, Stephen? Earlier in the year? So about the time the increase went into effect, we had the COVID hit. So it kind of offset. So it's kind of hard to tell what the impact of both of those are because you had a 10% increase and then you had the drop off in demand. So we'll see moving forward how it pans out. So that's about it. Unless you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for everything.
Before Don leaves, I had emailed you all that agreement last night for the application. This is just the first 5 pages of it, without all the attachments that were to it.
Thank you.
We already had that.
Y'all have that already?
We do.
Okay.
Yep.
Nope. Martha got off the phone this morning. That's why I couldn't find it. I didn't know if anybody
Martha's
picked it up.
good.
Thank you, Martha. I would request, going ahead and approving, us applying for this project. Don mentioned it does have a matching component to it, and we have funds available for that. So I'll request authorization, for staff to sign the revolving loan fund Southwest Virginia pilot program application.
Entertain a motion to authorize staff to apply for and sign any and all documents for the Southwest Virginia pilot program application.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. Anything else on that, Mr. Barrett?
No, sir.
Moving on to county administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item would be the parking ordinance that we delayed the public hearing previously. Would request us go ahead and set a public hearing on that. Earliest I would recommend would be July 28th, or we could do it on August 11th.
I won't be here July 28th, so not that it matters, but I was saving that for later.
To like the 24th.
Yeah.
What else y'all want to put on the agenda? Yes, we'll do it August 11th. The chairman has been a big proponent of this, and I would recommend
That's
let's have
the
the
only
public
reason I
hearing on
said-
August 11th.
That's
So, okay.
Do we need to take any action to do that, or? just
We
have
just
to-
advertise it, or do we need to take action?
Entertain a motion to set a public hearing for August 11th for the
So
proposed
moved.
parking ordinance. Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Do a roll call vote, Mr. Terry.
Aye.
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 Next item is the fiscal year-end appropriations and carryover report. Reviewed this last week with the budget committee, but basically what you have there is the columns showing for the departments, the budget, the expenditures, required appropriations, which are the actions that need to be taken to bring the budget into balance for a couple of the accounts. And then you see the carryovers, and then the last column has the estimated unspent funds for each department. I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody might have on any of it. I would request that the board approve this amendment appropriations and carryover, which will be appropriating $529,012 to the current budget, and carryover of $5,811,672.
Entertain a motion to approve the FY 20 year-end appropriations and carryover report as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 Aye. So approved.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is I would request the first quarter's appropriation be approved, which is the first quarter appropriation and the carryovers as well, as shown on page 179 of your report.
Entertain a motion to approve the first quarter appropriations and the carryover as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
On the carryover report, and as Mr. Vaught addressed this earlier, so I forgot to bring it up again. Basically, it does show on our current numbers under the school system, the $1,709,000. Their letter to us indicated $1,527,000. Obviously, we got to make sure we get all the things posted and out of the way. The school board did request carryover of $27,000. That is not showing on this request right here. I told them once we got the end of the books actually balanced and we saw exactly what was left over, we would address it, and also the $39,000 that they wanted to make certain they had moved into their cafeteria fund as well. So probably in the July 14th or 28th meeting, we will be looking at those items. So, and the next item I have, Mr. Chairman, was just informational for you on broadband. We've had our initial meetings with the team members from the school board trying to build our broadband team. Dr. Holmes from DHCD has scheduled some meet and greets. We've met with CenturyLink. We've also had a conversation with Point Broadband. We're discussing with AEP next week, and there's another provider meeting with next week. Point Broadband, which is the old BVU Sunset Digital, is highly interested in doing a project in Wythe County. They currently have a project proposed in Washington County, Smith County, and the Sugar Grove area, and would like to include the southwestern portion, and I haven't seen a map yet, of Wythe County. So I'm assuming if they're coming over from Cedar Springs, probably over into the Cedar Springs, out towards Speeble area, out in there. We have a meeting Thursday with Mount Rogers PDC, Smith County, Washington County, myself, and Point Broadband to discuss it, and they are looking at trying to get an application in regionally through the PDC for some projects there. CenturyLink is looking at various VADI and other projects, and we still have to have a conversation with Citizens Cablevision and look at their projects. But it's moving quicker than we thought on some of these, but it's good with the timing. It's out there for this round of grants and for the next round of grants. There are several companies that want to partner with Wythe County to get grants, get applications. And right now, the grants that we're looking at are not requiring anything other than support and information from us at this point in time. But as it goes into more in depth, if we get into grants where it's taking, financial amounts to go in there, or things we've got to help with, they'll be coming back to the board, which I know that we'll be receiving full support, because you all definitely have some areas that need the expansion of broadband. So just want to give you that. When we get new staff hired, that's going to be one of the priorities in that position, is working on the broadband. So,
Well, when you talk to them about Cedar Springs, tell them that if you come down Cedar Springs, it turns into South Main Street, and then it turns into North Main Street, and right there at the four-way, it turns into Black Lick Road. And there's a whole lot of people down Black Lick Road that don't have any internet access. So,
and I'm excited about the meeting with AEP, because I'd like to see them expand what they're doing in Grayson
I'm
County.
interested in how that project in Grayson, because every house, for the most part, has electricity, so if you can piggyback off their infrastructure, even Mr. Farthing's got electricity at his house, but he's lucky to get dial-up, so.
And the only other thing that I have, other than that, unless y'all have any other questions on the broadband, I spoke to Mr. Smith briefly about it. Norfolk and Southern is interested in discussing with us potential closing of the crossing on the west end of the Max Meadows Community Field. It is the only alternative crossing for anything, should something happen directly on the railroad tracks. Of course, at the same time, if something happened directly on the railroad tracks, more than likely the crossing 100 yards down the road is closed as it is. We already have issues. The flooding cuts that area off. If you have an accident on the bridge, it cuts the area off. It's a similar story. They would like to meet with us, and I don't know if you want to have a couple members of the board or have Buildings and Grounds, maybe meet with them and review those options and discuss if that's something we want to consider or don't want to consider.
I'm sure Mr. Smith would
I'd like to be part of that meeting.
be interested. I don't know if anybody else wants to.
I'll do it with you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll get with them and arrange a meeting, and we'll discuss with them about it. One of the caveats would be, we currently pay, Kevin's not here, but I want to say we're now paying $700 and some annual rent on the Max Meadows ball field over there, and we've got to live up to all the Norfolk Southern stipulations. If they want to close that crossing, then I want us to own that land outright and for no additional charge, and then us not have to worry about meeting all the Norfolk and Southern requirements on it in the future. But, it is a disadvantage to close it in some respects. It is only a one-way route right now. But since we made a one-way route, Coy's lost a lot of money pulling trucks out of there. But we'll take a look at that, and I'll schedule that with Mr. Smith and Mr. Terry. That's all I have for County Administrator report, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Farthing, County Attorney.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything to report. I gave you a list of the assignments I'm working on. I believe we might talk about Branch a little bit later today.
Are you going to be here tonight?
I had not planned on it unless you want me to come. I'm happy to be here.
I don't, due to time, I don't know if we want to go in closed session. To discuss that, I don't know what everybody else's feelings is. I know a couple of.
We could do it at the July
We
meeting.
could wait till the July meeting.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Is there anything?
There's no urgency to
Okay.
it. Yeah, it's just really an update and a positioning issue. And he's requested a meeting, so they can work on scheduling that, and then we can talk about it at the July meeting.
Well, I'm sure you know what our stance is.
I believe so, yes, and I told him such, so. Without your authority, so.
I'm sure you've done.
But I made that known. I'll forward the emails to you, so.
You don't have anything else?
I do not.
And we talked about the pool proposal. Gov deal auction results.
Recommend awarding both of the ones that are handed out to you, Mr. Chairman, for the Caterpillar generator and the Ford Taurus for a total of $83,05.
Do we need to declare these as surplus?
Declare them surplus and authorize a sale.
Entertain a motion to declare these two items as presented as surplus and authorize Mr. Barrett to accept the high bids as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Need a motion to approve the Victim Witness Program grant, Mr. Chairman.
You've got that information in front of you. Entertain a motion to approve the Victim Witness Program grant.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Since this position is assigned to the sheriff's office, I'll abstain. Here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
I'll abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Board of Supervisors report. Mr. Smith?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Recently retiree, Mr. Cook?
I have nothing.
Ms. Lawson?
I have nothing.
Mr. McRoberts?
Nah, I have nothing.
Mr. Horning?
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Terry? Don't mess it up.
I'm gonna be the oddball.
Go ahead.
This is really quick, though. This is, I'm gonna fill in Mr. Smith's shoes here for just a second. It's about a road. I got a message, last night from a young lady that lives over on, Scenic Trail in Crockett. She said she's interested in trying to figure out how to get the road paved. She said last year, they paved approximately a quarter of the road and then stopped. She said now every time it rains, she said it washes out to the point where they have to come to and scrape the gravel consistently, and the road's in horrible shape. It's highly used due to the traffic bypassing Crockett Road.
I actually, not the lady you spoke to, I had somebody contact me, and is it half paved?
I would assume, I would have said no, but I'm assuming, and I haven't been up it since Charles Dix was on the
Well,
board.
that's the, I talked to Miss Tarter. She said that when Mr. Dix was on board, they paved half of it, but never paved the other half. And I told her we could try to get it on the 6-year plan, but it'd probably be next year unless some more funding.
I'll discuss with VDOT the eligibility for rural rustic. They may have put some pavement coming up that one hill where it was steep. I don't recall it ever been on the 6-year plan, unless it was some type of safety money or something like that.
I haven't, since I've talked to her, I haven't had a chance to ride out there.
We'll take a look at it, Mr. Terry.
Thanks, sir.
My recollection, it was all dirt. But
Yeah, that's.
Anything else, Mr. Terry?
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I don't have anything. Like I said before, thank everybody for their work on the budget. I know for 3 of you, it's not normally like this. Or I hope this is not the quote-unquote new normal as far as budget. And I did send out an email about the 4th of July holiday. And actually, I was confused. I didn't realize Friday is actually a holiday. Monday would be the 6th. I would like to give county employees the 6th off, give them extra day. Unlike a lot of their counterparts, they haven't been furloughed and getting paid to stay at home. They've either, very few of them have worked from home, and the other ones have been here every day. So I think it'd be a nice gesture to give them an extra day off. So I'll entertain a motion to give the county employees, and I guess constitutional officers can do what they want to. They're constitutional officers, but to close the offices and give the employees a extra holiday for Monday, July the 6th.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of all the employees, I express my appreciation, and we'll let them all know the reason for why you are doing it. We will have some staff, obviously, as always, that will have to work, and if the courts don't shut down, we'll provide them alternative holidays, but appreciate the gesture to them.
Apparently, those people are considered super essential.
Super essential.
Do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 Enjoy your 4-day weekend. Anything else, Mr. Baird?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. We'll see you at 6 o'clock.
Anything, Ms. Collins? We'll be in
Well
recess
deserved.
until 6 p.m. tonight. Back to order for the public hearing on the secondary 6-year plan. Read the notice of public hearing. The Virginia Department of Transportation and the Board of Supervisors of Wythe County, in accordance with Section 33.2-331 of the Code of Virginia, will conduct a joint public hearing in the boardroom of the Wythe County Administration Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, 24382, at 6 p.m. on June 30th, 2020. The purpose of this hearing is to receive public comment on the proposed secondary 6-year plan for fiscal years 2020, 2021 through 2025, 2026 in Wythe County, and on the secondary system construction budget for the fiscal year 2021. Copies of the proposed plan and budget may be reviewed at the Wytheville Residency Office of the Virginia Department of Transportation, located at 2803 Chapman Road, Wytheville, Virginia, or at the Wythe County Administration Offices located at 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia. All projects in the secondary 6-year plan that are eligible for federal funds will be included in the statewide transportation improvement program, which documents how Virginia will obligate federal transportation funds. Persons requiring special assistance to attend and participate in this hearing should contact the Virginia Department of Transportation, and persons wishing to speak at the public hearing should contact the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. That being said, I'll open up the public comment period. Have one person signed up, Mr. Philip Scott. Pretty informal, Mr. Scott. So.
Excuse me?
I said, we're pretty informal. We just,
Well, if y'all know, I'm Philip Scott. I'd like to thank Jamie for contacting me and let me know about it. Over the past, I've lived on Doe Run for 27 years. And I have called the State Department and everybody else to try to get it paid. There's within 4/10 of a mile is all the road is. But there's 13 families that live on that road. You can drive around Archer Road. There's an area there that's been paid, and it's 1 mile 7/10. Got the same amount of families there. But where ours, we believe we've been left out because it's a dead-end road. Because I have talked to several other families that live there to ask them to come with me prior to this, to try to get it paid. And they said, well, they won't do it. They won't. They didn't think they'd do it. But to me, when you go to adding up the numbers, when you paid all them people, when they got paid do that 1.7 miles, it's a whole lot cheaper to have done that 4/10, because those people use that road too. I don't know what else to say, but I just would really appreciate it if you could get it on a list, or even just get on it tomorrow if you would.
well, there's a lot of roads we wish we could get on tomorrow. And Mr. Smith, we discussed some of these roads before, and he had Doe Run on his wish list, so here in a little bit, we'll go ahead and adopt these roads and get them on the list. And here in a minute, I'll get Mr. Barrett to explain exactly, excuse me, exactly how the 6-year plan works, because a lot of people get confused. A lot of people come up here and they get the road on the list and they think it's gonna be 6 months, a year, and they get their feelings hurt. It could be anywhere from tomorrow to July 1st in 6 years. It's, you know, it's just, it's going to get done sometime within that 6-year period. So, but, thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you all.
Thank
Yes, sir, thank you.
We had one gentleman come in. Did you want to speak, sir?
Well, I just really wanted to ask a question again.
If you would, give us your name.
Edgar Testerman. I live on Saddle Tree Lane in Speedwell, and I'm going up and down this creek, and there's sections of it. I've talked to the Army Corps of Engineers, the State Department. There's sections of it that they have fixed in patches, but nobody has yet come and see us about clearing the bridge, the debris under it, the trees growing under it. And I've sent pictures to about everybody on the erosion and what's going on there. And I know that DEQ said there aren't any funds to widen it or whatever, but they've never come in sections. If you come and see it, it's shored up with rock and wire. And it's down the creek, but nobody's ever addressed the front issue where the problem starts. And I'm wondering, why is that?
And we're actually having a public hearing just to talk about dirt roads tonight.
Okay.
We had the regular meeting at 9 this morning.
Oh.
But if you want to hang around, we actually discussed some of that this morning. If you want to hang around till after we get done with the meeting
Okay.
and talk to Mr. Barrett, he can give you an update.
Not a problem.
I knew I recognized you, I just couldn't remember if you was from Dirt Road or where.
Well, mine's a dirt lane, but I'll tell you what.
And we do have Mr.
Andy Fowler.
Andy Fowler from VDOT on the phone. I'm sorry, I should have recognized him. Mr. Fowler, did you hear Mr. Scott?
Yes, I did.
We don't have anybody else signed up at this time. I'll close the public comment period.
Can I say something else?
Yeah.
That reminded me, when you said the VDOT, one time I spoke with them, and there's a lot of times when that road's needed to be scraped. And they would let it go like 3 days. But that night, they would come up or they would turn around and leave out. And I've been told that VDOT's trucks has a button in them, that all they got to do is either pull it or push it, and they can cut the salt off. Well, they said that the reason that they can't scrape our road would be putting the salt on the dirt road. So they wait till they can put gravel. But 4/10 of a mile is not that far. They could cut that off and just scrape it without leaving the salt, and it'd be even easier for people to get in and out to go back and forth to work. That would really help out.
Thank you, sir. I'll close the public comment period now. Mr. Bear, is there anything you want to add?
Basically, you are correct on your talk about the years on this. This, and Mr. Fowler can jump in here at any time. What's been presented to you tonight is to add roads to the 6-year plan. On the last page, page 5 of 5 of the plan, are the roads that when we last met with Mr. Fowler that you all recommended adding. Those are Gap of the Ridge Road, Sheffytown Road, and Doe Run Road. Gap of the Ridge Road is only 1.6 miles. Sheffytown Road is 2 miles from Huddle Road to Mule Hill Road. And Doe Run is the 0.45 miles that the gentleman just spoke about. These are added into the last year of the plan, so this is FY 2026, which is the time period from July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. I will compliment VDOT. It was true years ago, a 6-year plan was a 20-year plan. With the changes that they've made, and I think it started around 2009 when they had to remove a lot of roads from the plan, they have really been completing the roads within, if not less than, the 6-year time frame and speeding up the process. But the roads been at it right now would be on the schedule for 2026.
Mr. Fowler, is there anything you want to add, sir?
Yeah, just quickly, if you'll look on that same page, the last page, at the gap of the Ridge Road.
Yes.
I just have a couple edits, and Stephen pointed this out the other day, and so basically I just need to get back with our programmer, if you guys agree to leave these roads on this plan. You'll see there on Gap of Ridge Road, it says that it starts at Route 11 to 1.6 miles. And it says Swallow Hollow on there. And that was my mistake. Swallow Hollow is 1.6 miles from
Black Lick Road.
Black Lick Road, yes. And so I had that backwards. So if you could just mark through, for your benefit, mark through Swallow Hollow. Swallow Hollow is actually 0.5 miles from Route 11, but in this plan, we're going to go 1.6 miles from the intersection of Route 11 and Gap Ridge Road, which actually ends right at the last residence on
Gap of Ridge.
Ridge Road. And then I guess we're going to look into adding the remaining 0.5 miles of Gap Bridge in a later plan, maybe next year.
Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Just one minor note on page 3, the second road down. While you were doing edits, Route 738. Page 3 of 5, yeah, page 3 of 5, second road. That should be Jonastown Road, not Jonas Road.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Jones Road. Second one from the top,
Yes, sir.
Jonestown. Okay, I'll get them to fix that as well.
Thank you.
And, let's see here. And then real quickly on the last page again, you'll see that with the funding we had this year, it will actually cover adding Gavin Ridge, Sheffytown Road, and Doe Run. But you'll see on the far right, in the bottom right box there, it says that we'll need, on Doe Run, it says we'll need additional $90,000 to fully fund. What we're going to do there is, we had talked about this before, if you switch back to the second page, on Major Graham Road, second one from the top, first road from the top, you see that? Major Graham Road?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, 670,000.
Yes, all right. We've estimated that project at around $540,000. And what we were going to do was, where we got the $500,000 in the high volume unpaved route funding, we still had $170,000 in there in the 6-year plan for Major Graham Road. And what I'm going to do is have our programmer move the $90,000 from just 670, or from the
Mr. Fowler, let me ask you a question on that. With the funding already there, does that speed the process up of?
Well, it's projected over 6 years, so the funding isn't actually, it isn't there for, well, it actually is in the plan now, the 170,000.
Yes, sir.
It is in the plan, and so there's actually, 170, so about 130, if we use 540 on Major Graham Road, there's about $130,000 that is in the plan additional right now. And what that does, it helps all the other roads. It gives us the opportunity to keep the other roads in order, but move those forward, because funding becomes available sooner.
Total-wise, it gives you enough to fulfill the whole plan, but it's sort of a domino effect. It doesn't really move till the year number 6. It moves to the next available project, but in essence, you kick out $90,000 or 120 or whatever to the very end to fully fund your project.
Yeah, you just basically keep kicking it down the road, and if we have funds left over on any other projects throughout the next 5 or 6 years, that money also gets pushed to the back to help fund the projects on the end of the plan. So it's there, but it doesn't allow us to take the projects out of order, if that makes any sense. We just keep them in the same order and just keep pressing forward, building the roads each year.
Does anybody else have any more questions for Mr. Fowler?
I just kind of got a comment for the, Mr. Fowler for Doe Run. Is there anything that we can do to help them with some of the flood or the stormwater runoff that they're having right now until we get the road paved?
We can look at it. I know lately with the flooding we've been having, we've just been blown away with flooding. I mean, once a week it seems. We've had just a heavy rain. Last week we had 4 inches within 1 hour on that end of the county, and I don't know how else to say it except we can't control that much water, that volume of water. It's impossible. But if there's anything, if there are any culvert pipes that are stopped up, if there's a ditch that need to be cleaned, we can do things of that nature. So I can have our crews go review Doe Run and see if there's anything like that going on. But,
Okay, yeah, I'm sure they would appreciate it. I know,
we've been getting lately, it's been more rain than we can handle.
right, and I'm sure they'll appreciate it. I know one resident contacted me and said that VDOT came through and done some grade work, but they cut the ditch through their driveway and they had to fill it back in to get out. So if that's the case, I would think we would look at putting a culvert in right there.
Right, and we can look into that. I think there was a work order that came through, or maybe it might have been I think it was a request through Stephen from you.
It was?
I will look into that and see if there's something that can be done there. If there's no pipe and they had to cut a swell or a ditch in there, then obviously it would improve drainage by installing a pipe.
All right, thank you.
And just a quick review for you guys, for your constituents. As I mentioned, all the flooding we've had this year, and it's been relentless. Our crews have spent most of their time, actually all of their time, combating the floods. We've repaired Miller's Creek Road. We repaired that road back every time it floods, and Connors Valley and Collins Cove. We've had some problem spots that just keep getting blown away, and so it's pretty much it stalled our 6-year plan, secondary 6-year plan, rural rustic build this year. The roads that we have on the plan for this year: Major Graham Road, Mount Airy Road, Glade Road, Oak Road. gonna be, we haven't been able to get on as soon as we wanted to. Let's just put it that way. And it's also impacted our mowing. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed and probably heard some complaints about high grass on some of our routes, and this constant flooding has hijacked our work schedule, our normal maintenance schedule. But with that said, this week, we finished Mount Airy Road. I think they finished everything up on it yesterday. And that crew is moving to Glade Road next to take care of that point 4. We're in the process of starting Major Graham and Grouse Ridge. They've already started work on that one. And Pope Road is next to be started. So they should all be started and finished in this year, 2020.
Thank you, Andy.
Mr. Fowler, one thing you brought up, I have gotten a couple complaints, and it's not your folks mowing, but some of your contractors that are leaving a large amount of grass on the roadway. Have you received those complaints as well?
Yes, and my contract monitor has addressed that with the contract mower, and that shouldn't happen anymore.
Okay. I was gonna send you an email, but I thought I'd see you tonight, or you'd be on the phone, so I just waited, so thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and our contract monitor followed through behind them, I think, the next day and saw that they had done that, and so that should not happen again.
Well, when I got the complaint, I didn't think it was VDOT, and once I seen the equipment, I realized it was contractors, because
And I guess at this point, back to the 6-year plan, if we want to keep it as is, I'll have these couple corrections made to the plan that we've discussed, and I'll send the new plan to you guys for resolution and signature.
well, if you'll give me about 30 seconds, I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Does anybody else have anything? I'll entertain a motion to add the Gap of the Ridge Road, Sheffy Town Road, and Doe Run Road to the 6-year plan for Wythe County with VDOT.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second. Mr. Chairman, if I might, I would just request that you word the motion to approve the secondary system 6-year plan.
Secondary system, 6-year plan.
Yeah.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. So approved. They are at it, Mr. Fowler.
All right, I'll get this corrections made and send the new plan to Stephen as soon as possible.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Andy. Have a
Fowler.
good evening.
Anything else, Mr. Barry?
No, sir. Y'all been here long enough today. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend.
Well, anybody else have anything? Ms. Collins? We'll be adjourned.